What's up, headbangers? Welcome to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast, where we geek out on all things rock and roll. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Leave us your likes and comments. You can also leave likes and comments on our Facebook page. Follow us on iTunes, Spotify, Instagram at talklouder_podcast, and of course our website, talklouderpodcast.com, where you'll find links to our merch and all of our previous episodes. I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with my co-host Jason McMaster. And today, man, you know, we've had a lot of people on the show that sort of fit the definition of lifer, what we like to call lifer, guys that are, you know, guys and girls that are, you know, rock and roll was not a phase. They're still living, breathing, creating, and still doing it. And this guy that we got today is the embodiment and the very definition of lifer. We've got Katon W from the band Hirax.
What a fucking episode.
Dude. Yeah.
Out of the gate, what a fucking episode we just had. What a great hang with this guy.
Yeah. Lot of energy, a million great stories, such a positive human being. And I think that's one of the things I took away from the whole conversation is what a positive outlook this guy has. It's rare. It's refreshing. I enjoyed it. It was really nice getting to meet him and know him a little bit today. And his history speaks for itself. I mean, you're not going to find much, you know, a better resume in Bay Area thrash and California thrash crossover heavy metal than you are with that guy.
Yeah, I think that if you look into his history and the people that this sounds cheesy, like rubbed elbows with or worked with or knows by default because he's from Southern California. It goes back to his brushes with Metallica, his brushes with Tom G. Warrior all the way over in Zurich, Switzerland because of tape trading.
Yeah.
We talk a little bit about that and the connection between Tom Warrior and Hirax.
Yeah, I didn't know that, by the way.
Yeah, I figured it's not a well-known thing. I think if you search deep, it just depends on what article you click on, right?
Yeah.
But I knew that, and then it's obvious now to let the cat out of the bag. Maybe I'll save it. Maybe you don't know that connection, and I'll let you figure it out when we talk about it.
I think you should save it. Yeah.
Yeah, but the connections that he has just by being a fan is huge. They stack as high as you can reach. The connection he has with the Bay Area thrash metal bands, and we talk about that connection in a recent set of shows that he did called the Bay Area Interthrational.
Mm-hmm.
That's made up mostly of Bay Area musicians, members of Exodus and Testament, and everybody up there. If I say the wrong band name, it's a collective from the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Which he was invited because, you know, he's from Southern California. He's from the LA scene, but he's connected with those guys up there. So when they wanted to put this show together, they called him to do, I think he did 6 or 7 songs with the Bay Area Interthrational and went over to Holland to perform on one of the festivals over there.
Yeah.
There's footage of that on YouTube. People can check that out. But check us here out today on the Talk Louder podcast with Katon W from Hirax. My favorite Loudness album of all time is Disillusion, my man.
Wow, it's a very good record. That's number 2 for me. I like The Law of the Devil's Land.
Oh yeah, well that would be my number 2. So we're next door neighbors.
Yeah. To me, the Devil's Land records, to me, for loudness, that would be their 2112.
Okay, wow. Very interesting nerds right out of the bag here, because the Disillusion record has some songs, maybe not all of the songs collectively, sound kind of progressive, and therefore I call Disillusion their prog record. Therefore, I say sometimes that even with Minnie's voice, Minoru's voice, he sounds like Geddy Lee sometimes. Therefore, you see where I'm going. Disillusioned is their Rush kind of record.
All right. Well, when we finish this, you should listen to Devil's Land again.
Oh, I have it. I have it right here. I have it. But
nice.
I need to get, Katon, should I listen to it on CD or vinyl?
Doesn't matter. I mean, you know what's funny? Like,
I'm just bragging that I have it on many formats.
I'm a freak like that too.
Yeah.
On certain records, like if it's a certain band and a certain record, I'll have multiple formats.
Yeah. So this is Metal Dave here with the Power Trip shirt and the Thin Lizzy hat.
My pleasure to meet you, man.
Likewise, man. I was gonna tell Jason, I think Caden's the first guy we've had on the show that has a background that's similar to ours. You can tell he's got a room that I'd like to stare at the walls there for a while if I was at his house.
From what I'm seeing, it's mutual.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? Whenever I travel, because I've become such a nerd about records and you know all formats. Like what's funny with me, I'll listen to any format. Obviously, I prefer vinyl just because of the pictures and the size and all that. But if I can even get a crappy MP3 of a band that's like awesome, I'll check it out from there, and then I'll find the rest. I'll find the cassettes or the vinyl or whatever the hell's out there. But I really don't snob on anybody, even if they listen to streaming services. If they're listening to good stuff, it just doesn't matter, you know?
Yeah. That's a good way to be. That's very sort of like, that's very open-minded. I can't say that I'm not some kind of digital snob because I think that it's important. You know, as a songwriter, that's your intellectual property.
Oh yeah.
And streaming, I mean, it's not about money, but you should be compensated somehow. And so, you know, the lessers of, I'll just call them that, if that's even a word, the lessers of the digital platforms, there are some, and I prefer Amazon and YouTube over the other guys.
Yeah, and I get it, and I wouldn't even mention them because that's just being a smart person. Because you don't need to give them any publicity since they're already jacking a bunch of our friends, including us.
Amen. Amen.
But what I will say though is, for me, it's the double-edged sword because of the scene / movement that I've been, you know, a part of for almost 40 years now. Whatever. I mean, but there's a blurry line that goes further back than that.
Right.
It's been a tough line to walk because we still get known because of being such an underground band that stuff spreads that way, and we don't get paid for it. But in a way, you kind of do when you get back out there and tour, and you know people find out about your band that probably couldn't even afford it, or they like even me as a young kid, I couldn't afford every record. So like me and my friends, that's where tape trading, you know, duping tapes and sharing music came from. Even though even on the records back in the day, they had that little cassette on there that said home taping is killing music. Well, then I guess I was murdering it because we were sharing tapes all over the place. But I do understand that musicians need to get paid because I'm one of them. And it's hard because it's hard enough as it is. You know, you put your blood, sweat, and everything into your music. And it is nice to get paid. But also for us, it helps that it gets out there free because a lot of those kids are such diehards that they'll come and see us, like, you know, traveling through South America. These kids will drive like 8 hours just to see the band, you know? So, and not all of them have a ton of money, but they save whatever they have just to even come to the shows. So like I said, it's a double-edged sword, but yeah, it would be nice to get paid for every single song that you've written because sheesh, we'd be doing pretty good. I mean, not that we're not, but we'd be doing better. So it's like I said, for me, it's a fine line, but I like both because also I'm guilty of buying bootlegs still to this day. If there's a Stones bootleg that I don't have, I'll probably buy it, you know, because that's my all-time favorite rock and roll band. But, you know, so I kind of understand the boots and, you know, like, but with us also, it's worked out great. So when we go on the road, we actually go out and meet these people that are actually booting our stuff, and we actually make deals with them because they're going to bootleg it anyways. So we've done a lot where we've gone, you know, certain countries and made deals with guys that are bootlegging whether it's our CDs or our T-shirts or our patches. I mean, you can't even keep up with all that stuff. I mean, and that's not even including in countries that you can't even monitor, like Russia. There's a whole line of stuff there that we have no control over. But it's okay. You know, I mean, I have to kind of come to terms with all that. Because if you beat yourself up about it or try to chase down everybody that's making your stuff, you go insane.
Well, I've tried to befriend those guys. I've tried to, like you're saying, you cut deals with them. Well, hold on a second. So they're your street team.
Basically,
and they're doing a lot of work to promote your band, so they should be getting something. You're just there to say, hey, it's okay as long as there's a little bit of kickback. Just keep on doing what you're doing because it's helping me. And if I can help you by just not getting mad about that. Like I've done deals where I've been contacted by someone who I won't even call him a bootlegger anymore. who is making my stuff, and I said, hey dude, this badge or this patch looks awesome. What can we do to make this legit? How about you mass produce and then just give me like a third of them, just whatever that amount that is, and I can sell them on my website, and I can fly your banner so that whenever I run out and they have to have one, they go to you.
Yeah, and a lot of them do want to work with you. You'd be amazed. Like my wife has gone out where when we play Mexico City, especially when we hit Mexico City, there's swap meets basically full of our merchandise. Yeah. So we started going out. I didn't, but because I knew it'd just be crazier if I went out. But my wife would go out there and talk to these guys, and they'd be like, hey, we'd love to work with her. They were actually scared at first that she would be mad, and she's like, no, we'll work with you. Just like, we're just trying to work with everybody because it's just better to do that. And then also I feel very proud. Like this is a thing that has always humbled me about being a musician. When you go to other places to play, whether it's even your home city, you're providing jobs, believe it or not. Like there's people working at the bar that wouldn't be working that night. There's people working the parking lot. There's liquor stores, especially with our band. There's liquor stores that are making money down the street, because some people like to get their pre-party on. So I just feel great that like we actually help there be some kind of commerce. There's money. There's people working. There's people getting jobs. And so that's awesome, and that's basically one of the main reasons I'm still doing all this, just because I think it's great that we somehow these kids that came out of a garage are creating jobs and making people have some kind of money, like where they can actually support it. So that's cool.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dave. Have you ever seen a piece of Hirax merchandise that was a piece of bootleg merch that was so well done that you wish, man, I wish we would have put this out? Totally.
And to this day, I'm still either trying to do better with our stuff because these kids have made better stuff than us, so we had to make better stuff. It's kind of like art imitates art. Like you just learn from other people's stuff, and they see it from a different perspective. There's a kid that will be in, say, Japan that has a different perspective on Hirax than a kid in, say, Brazil.
Yeah.
So, and even in our hometown, like here in Los Angeles, Southern California, there's a whole different take on what we do as well. So, but yeah, the bootlegs are amazing. And then you're like, I want some of those myself. You can't help it. If you're like I can see by your collection and behind you, if you're like a fan of music or even your own band stuff, there's certain stuff, but once in a while you'll see it and you'll go, dude, I need that for my own personal collection,
Absolutely.
I actually enjoy it because it seems like we've just, and I'm sure this happens with a lot of bands, but over decades, there's this love for your band that is like the love that you have for other bands, like the way I feel about Motorhead or AC/DC. Yeah. There are kids that feel that way. So it just kind of pushes you. And it still keeps you focused. I mean, I always knew I'd be into this for a long time just because I've always been real loyal. So when I got into music, my loyalty, it even toppled sports because I was originally a sports kid.
Yeah.
Music hit me and I was like, later, I'm going way to the music,
Yeah, so that's what I think a lot of mainly rock and roll, heavy metal kids, before they bonding with your brothers and your parents when you're young, sports is really good for that. But sometimes when all of a sudden the kid down the street shows you Kiss Alive, you're over. It's over. Sports are done. You're fucking done. So, and then your parents can't really keep up with, you wanting to steal mom's clothes and put makeup on and jump up and spit ketchup at the mirror and,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and then your whole neighborhood.
You're nailing it right now because
I was going to say, I think a second ago, you were nailing like all of this stuff that we've either talked about, that I've said in other interviews myself, about the tape trading, about, I have to give credit to Blake Ibanez from Power Trip Fugitive, because he said the same thing about, here it comes, Spotify, about all of those, the digital platforms, about how, well, that's how that's like the new tape trading. That's how people are going to hear it right now, instead of like, well, how can I get that? Man, I have to have that demo, well, it's like, just open it up and press play. So in a way, it's kind of the new way to turn people on to music immediately, in an immediate meeting, and standing in the middle of the street where you're not even plugged into anything.
Yeah.
So
that one service that you just mentioned, I haven't even used it. I used to use it, and then when I found out more about that service, because I'm one of those people, like, if I don't like something, I just don't use it. I don't need to tell everybody about it. I mean, I'm telling them now, but I'm just saying, like, certain streaming services or businesses, I just don't frequent them if I don't agree with what they do.
Sure, it's unfortunate that I agree with you wholeheartedly. The unfortunate part is that I have to use it because I build playlists for my job. I'm a music teacher, so I have to build playlists for my boss. You know what I mean? To approve material, and so that the client. But it goes back to what I was saying. That's a way to, someone is learning from this playlist that I've put together that's for a show theme that we're offering as a product. Yeah. So it's just easy to go in and collect a bunch of music, and as sort of it's like hanging up a flyer. It's like making a mixtape. It's the same thing. Yeah. So it's just immediate. Hey man, I want to get into just your whole vibe and your whole like retrospect and opinion and just anything and everything about Katon W, because officially, and I'll say this now, I don't believe we've ever met.
I was going to ask.
It's going to be time this year now that we can all crawl out of our layers and start doing shit,
Yeah, but I know that
it's crazy because we know a ton of the same people, running a lot of the same circles, have done similar stuff, and I'm sure the same goes for you as well, man. It's like, we've been doing this and we're obviously lifers. We're so screwed up. We're going to be doing this till the day we die. Yeah. And I just really love it. Like, I'm one of those dudes, if I see you in a store, even if I don't know you and you're wearing a shirt that I know.
Yeah.
What's up?
That's that first day of school. You're looking, man, I don't know any of these people. I'm in a new neighborhood. I don't know anybody. And then you look for the kid wearing the Motorhead shirt and you go, me and you are friends and you don't even know it yet.
Without a problem. Like, you could get a ride home, or if you need help, or if you need a buck for lunch, you got it.
Isn't it weird how just music and that just breaks all barriers and brings it together immediately.
We're lucky we're from a generation that can handle shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, we came from, our fathers were the most badass generation, but we learned a lot from that. But we also have this new world, and the new world's still blowing us away because we're not super young. But at the same time, we're like, dude, we used to put flyers on poles.
Yeah.
We used to go out late at night and do guerrilla marketing. We didn't even know it was called guerrilla marketing. We had no idea about any of these little cool words that everybody's using now. We were doing it.
And you know what? There was probably laws against that just weren't enforced because it wasn't really wasn't that to the system, to the cops, to the,
Yeah, they had bigger fish to fry.
Yeah. But now you see, I started seeing it in the 90s. You start seeing like, warning signs that says no solicitation whatsoever. This could cause, $2,000 fine. They just think that it's littering. It's like worse than littering.
Yeah, it's crazy. But back when we were doing it, was like,
No.
Totally underground. And you only knew if like you saw a flyer. Like what's great being from Southern California, we would actually be really young and see Van Halen flyers and stuff on poles and Quiet Riot flyers and stuff like that. So, you know, I came from that, but I also just have this thing where I just really dig being a part of the movement, the scene, and helping people out, and they've helped me out, and that's just what we do. So growing up, I grew up in Buena Park, which is kind of Orange County-ish, but also really close to LA County. Like we're right on the line. So we got all the LA bands, but we got all the Orange County bands that nobody knew about because Orange County wasn't really known like LA, Hollywood, Pasadena, you know, you've got all that. Yeah. So we're in the middle, and my dad was in the Navy for 30 years. So I've been open to different music and different cultures from all over the world. Like that's cool. I love it. Yeah. You know, I love history. I love culture. I love humans. And music brings them together. So perfect for me. I grew up on all the basic stuff. I grew up on Chuck Berry. That was the earliest stuff for me. I'm not saying that to be cool. It's just the way it was. My dad was into blues. My mom liked pop music, like the Supremes, the Ronettes, all that kind of stuff, Motown. But that was good. And then my brother was a Hendrix freak, you know. So I had an older brother. And I always hung out with older dudes, so that's where all that 70s and Southern rock, and I proudly love all that stuff because that's my upbringing, you know, and I grew up around guys that I was lucky because there were dudes around me that actually knew what was up. They knew music. Like I got introduced to ZZ Top. ZZ Top and the Stones were probably the bands that really started pivoting to where I got into hard shit. And then when I heard AC/DC and Thin Lizzy and UFO, and also don't forget Montrose. It was I just like a bomb went off when I heard like, you know, the drums. When you hear the drums to Rock Candy, when they open up that track, stuff like that was life changing for me. And obviously Van Halen's first album when that came out, because like I said, I'm from Southern California, so Van Halen was not just gods; they were the band. Like I felt for everybody around them at that time.
Right. Hey, were any of your parents or siblings or anyone actually play music, or were they all just fans of music? Did you get it?
Yeah, my dad loved it, so he brought violins back. So my sisters all played violin and piano.
Oh,
my brother was a drummer. But for me, it was more just that I got introduced to the hard and heavy stuff, and that just spoke to me. I think every kid has certain music that hits them. Yeah, you know, and music just for me was like I had a new best friend, and I made a lot of good friends from it that I still have 30, 40 years later. Yeah, if they're still alive. I hate to say that, but a lot of my most diehard friends that are still around, they're from 30, 40 years ago minimum.
Understood.
Did you have any aspirations to play an instrument in a band, or were you always kind of focused on being the front man?
I started out wanting to play instruments, but that takes a lot of focus if you want to be good. Yeah. You want to be really good. I don't care if it's punk rock or heavy metal or progressive rock, or if you're playing, you know, John Coltrane or Billy Cobham, whatever. You really got to put time into your instrument, unless you're a fool. Because there's so many good musicians, especially nowadays. Like these kids, especially, they're a whole next level, and they've grown up with video games, and they can go on YouTube and learn guitar riffs. We didn't have that.
Yeah. Well, don't sell yourself short. You had to put time into being a singer, even in a thrash band.
Oh yeah, luckily that turned me on. Like as a singer, when I saw back to Van Halen, I saw them at Anaheim Stadium on the first tour.
Wow.
And Roth, people can say whatever they want to say about David Lee Roth. Certain guys may not have Rob Halford's register or Ronnie James Dio's power. Yeah. But Roth, for what he did, nobody better at what he did.
He was kind of like he was very dangerous.
And the screams and the body movements. I mean, to parents, that would be your biggest nightmare.
Oh yeah. Well, he was like Elvis. He was like, I was just gonna say he's like Elvis Presley on like 1,000 because he was heavy metal. He was gonna steal your girlfriend. He was rock and roll. he was Jim Dandy.
Yeah.
He was Elvis, and he was holding dynamite, going, "Hey, it's time to party."
Yeah.
And the rules back then were way different. Like we can't do that stuff now. You can't get away with any of that. That's why you're going to probably still see older rock stars get busted for crap that happened 30 years ago, because we live in a different world now.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll accept it. It's a new world. But I'm just saying, seeing guys like Roth and I was lucky enough to see UFO pretty early, and just those bands just flipped my switch. Even if I didn't see them, like I never saw Thin Lizzy, which I would have loved to have seen them, especially right around 78, 79.
Yeah.
But I didn't get to see them, but those bands, hearing their music and seeing the videos that we would get from Tower Records of Double Live and Dangerous, I remember getting that. I still have that videotape, like right out of reach, out of frame. But I still have the VHS for Double Live and Dangerous. And I got that a long time ago. I was a child, basically an older child, but very young. Got into it at 13, and by 15, that's when I saw Sabbath at 15.
Wow.
What tour was that?
Van Halen, Boston, and Sammy Hagar opening.
Oh wow, that's not a bad first gig.
Van Halen opened up with Atomic Punk.
Oh,
that's so metal.
No wonder you turned out the way you did.
Yeah. Well, I love it that your family, as had such a great influence on you as a young man and just as a man.
Five of them. So that's why my music's all over the place. Even though I'm predominantly a rock metal dude, but no, music taste is crazy.
Let's do some more history. When was the first time that you met Bill Metoyer?
Probably 84. Yeah, 84.
Okay. And then
really young. I mean, we all were, but he was like young, and I didn't know what he looked like, so that blew my mind.
Yeah.
So I felt more comfortable because I've always been kind of the odd man out in a way, but not really, but in a way. So seeing Bill made me more comfortable, and we just developed a good friendship. He's really got dry humor. I'm a little bit more crazy. I'm a little louder, but we match really well. We both enjoy a good drink. Over the years you get better. You don't drink like you used to. We both are crazy, but we still enjoy a good drink and a good laugh. And he's really great to work with because he pushes me and doesn't put up with shit and tells me to do it again even when I don't want to.
Right.
He's a real producer. Like, he's not just your friend. He'll get the best out of you.
Yeah.
So I've gotten back to working with him because I didn't for a little while, but he'll probably be my producer till the day I die. I wouldn't doubt it. It's just, you can get different people, and there's a lot of great producers. Trust me, there's so many. And some bands like to work with everybody they can, but I still like that when you get kind of comfortable with somebody and he hasn't screwed up your sound, and he still keeps you true to what you want to do. Like, he knows what I want to do. Like with Hirax, it's always been a certain vision.
Yeah.
I mean, every band has their thing. But for us, we always wanted to do something a little different and maybe take chances that not everybody was doing. Because when we came up, most of the bands were pretty evil or had more evil imagery and satanic imagery, which we love, but we didn't want to do that, so we did. But he knows what we're trying to do. Just do something different, but it's still thrash metal. But it's Hirax has always had its thing,
Yeah. Throughout Hirax's sort of discography, if you will. It's been sort of a scatter of a few full lengths, and it seems like a bunch of EPs.
Yeah, you know why though, dude? I've had it. I mean, not hard because you can sit and cry about that all day. But when you're not making, I always tell people this, and it's a fact. If you're not making Slayer money, like if you haven't gotten to that level where you got real income, and you're older, and you've got people that have families and girlfriends and kids and houses and crap like that, you really have it a little tougher. So you gotta, you don't really get to keep musicians, because you would keep all of them if you could afford to and keep them happy. But sometimes guys have better jobs, and they, I had a guy who has his own business, and he was making way more money having his own business, but it was like he still did it because he loves the music.
Sure.
So it's kind of good to have a backup job, but until you're making Slayer money, you probably won't be able to keep a steady lineup because people get older, their values change. They're not the same people they were maybe 2-3 years ago. Even look at what happened 3 years ago. Things changed for everybody. So nobody's the same person they were 3 years ago,
Right.
whether they realize it or not.
Right.
So keeping a band together, as you know, it's really not easy. So that's why there's been EPs, a lot more EPs and albums, but I'm trying to change that because it's like, yeah, it gets a little where you like do EP because you're trying to get material out there, but you don't want to put out something that's a stinker. So you're better off sometimes doing an EP than putting out a full album where you're really scratching for the last half of the record.
Yeah.
And that happens to a lot of bands because your focus changes too. Like, you know, you're not the same guy you were when you were 18 and living at your parents' house and eating top ramen at midnight watching David Letterman. You know?
Right. Good point. But
You know what I mean?
it's a digital age now too. So having having an EP where it's, you know, 3 or 4 tunes or less even, I feel is okay because of the attention span.
Yeah, and people are moving on fast from songs. I mean, we come from a different generation, so we'll sit and read a cassette like this for hours.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Especially that one. Especially that one.
We'll turn it over and look at the cassette tape and make sure the tape still rolls.
Wait, Ken, I wasn't done looking at that. Can you hold that up one more time?
Yeah. And then we'd look at it upside down,
right,
and sideways. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean the attention span of these kids is short. So you're probably good doing an EP, but it does show a lot of balls to put out a great record, like a full length.
Yeah.
But you know, as you get older too, though, it's not that you're not the same raw musician, but you start caring more. Right. So you're looking at the songs way different. You're harder on yourself. Some of the stuff sounds like shit to you, but it sounds great to the people you're working on it with, but you're still not happy with it. So there's this inner struggle because you really don't want to release something bad unless you don't give a shit. But I actually care. That's why there's been more EPs because I'm like, if it's not strong enough, I'm not doing a full length.
Yeah, I call those songs that aren't quite there. They're just not cooked, and you're probably going to burn them if you try to keep working on them. So you just kind of move them over, and maybe something will come of that one part that you liked. Maybe the rest of it's kind of weird, you know. I totally get it. That's your prerogative as an artist to, you know, put something together. But if it's not sounding like Hirax, then it's not going to see the light of day. I get that.
Yeah, and I was also raised on bands that had balls. So like for me, it's like if you look at the first 5 Ramones records, if you look at the first 5 AC/DC records, or 7, whatever you want to say, but those records were cooked. And they were gone. I mean, those first, even the ones that they did with the Albert brothers for the AC/DC records, those brothers had a lot of input carving and creating those songs. If you go back to even Dirty Deeds, that record's very creative, very imaginative, and raw as hell. Like I forgot how good Dirty Deeds was the other day, and I put it on, and I went, "Oh man, there's some cuts on that record." Like I don't think that record gets enough credit because you've got Let There Be Rock and you got Power Age, High Voltage, But if you go back and you listen to Dirty Deeds, there's some cuts on there, man. They're like,
absolutely.
I think that there is people of a certain age that they'll turn up Dirty Deeds when it comes on the radio, but the record that has all the cuts on it and you're wrapping your mind around it and you're blown away every time at those deep cuts, there is I guess a generation that won't do that because it's just not the hit. And so they're just fine with the hit. Dirty Deeds is a hit. It's still a hit. It's always going to be a hit. But it's everything that happens after Dirty Deeds on the record that your mind is actually being blown. And I feel like people's, once again, attention span, maybe it's generational, but there's a certain people of a certain age who are going to appreciate what it is that we see. And it could be any band, any record, it'd be a pop record, a country record, a soul record, whatever. You know, a Motown's greatest hits, even, you know, whatever it is, it's the songs you don't hear all the time that you're going to go, oh my God, I forgot about this. Oh, and you know,
I think it goes back to what Katon was saying earlier, you know, about the quality versus quantity, you know. So I look at the 70s and those records, and they're solid, man. And part of the reason they're solid is because they're 9 songs and they're done. And so the band, first of all, they put a lot of thought and effort into the creative process and coming up with great songs. There was no filler, you know, and then they called it done at 9 songs, you know, and it's like, that was an album.
Or less.
Or less. And then guess what? A year later, you got another one. So I don't know if by and large, if you took hard rock and heavy metal today, or in the last 15, 20 years, are there as many solid top to bottom, all killer, no filler records as there were in the 70s?
I don't think so. Because
I don't think so.
The 70s is phenomenal. Like the 70s is scary. 80s is incredible too. Yeah. And I love the 80s. The 80s was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
But the 70s, I mean, I'm talking even maybe late 60s, 68 through 70 to 80. Right? I'd say 68 to 80 is insane.
Yeah. A lot of solid records.
Cream, Hendrix, Sabbath's coming on.
Yeah.
Early 70s too, like 70 through 74. You had Montrose, you had even T-Rex, and that's more like glam. But if you listen to some of his guitar playing, it's heavy metal.
You got T-Rex and Queen and The Sweet.
The Sweet. Dude, that record's metal.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Desolation Boulevard is so metal, dude.
Straight up this.
I was just talking about Sweet F.A. That's like metal.
It's total metal.
Yeah.
It's just boring. That's all. These kids got to wake up, and just if you put that record on, it's perfect.
Hey, I want to switch gears because we could nerd out with you for 10 hours, dude.
Yeah, I know.
I'm starting to get that impression.
Yeah. I love it already. So listen, so listen, I feel like Hirax is a crossover band. Your thoughts?
Totally. Because also I grew up on all that shit. Like I love my first band, seriously, because my friend's brother down the street, he was the metal dude, but he was also a punk. Like he was the first crossover dude I ever met.
Wow.
And he was the older guy. And inside his house, we go in, he had a turntable. It was an old one, those wooden ones that were big and bulky, where you had to open up the lid on it and put the records in.
Yeah, a console. He had a console. Yeah.
He had a console. And it also had an 8-track player in it that was straight.
Of course it did.
Yeah. So, and next to it, he had a Marshall half stack, no bullshit, and a white flying V. And he was the guy that turned us on to the best. It was Sex Pistols. Ramones were first, though. So it was Ramones' first album, Sex Pistols record. Right around that time, it was, but it was like 76 through 78. So we were also getting Hellbent for Leather.
Yeah.
We were getting fucking Jailbreak.
Yep.
That record, that's another record that people don't really cut through and go, whoa, because there's some tracks on that record.
We just had, I have to interrupt you because we just had Joey Vera on the show yesterday.
I bet you he nerded out about that.
He went off on Jailbreak.
Yeah.
So
it's a completely beautiful record. They captured the guitars right. Yeah. Songwriting's completely there, especially by the time you get to Emerald.
Yep.
That should be played at everybody's funeral. That song it makes you feel like standing up and just punching your fist through the clouds. It's amazing. You know?
Yeah.
That band's very special. Like we could nerd out on that all day because Lizzie's records, like I feel bad for the kids that don't realize how they're one of the greatest catalog bands of all time.
Yeah.
Like once you get past like the first couple of records, they were still trying to find their way.
Yeah.
But once you get around the third and fourth record, that's when they're starting to find their way. And that catalog from that point on, so even to the very last record, is unbelievable. Like even when you get through Renegade and when you get through Chinatown, like there's certain cuts, and even the later in the album where you really realize how great of a songwriter Phil really was. Like he's not just good, he's incredible.
Yeah.
So the songwriting on Black Rose.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, he wrote any kind of song he wanted to write.
And it worked.
He wrote any kind of
work though.
Say what?
And it worked.
It worked,
of course. Of course.
His bass playing, which was very good. If you go through the bass too, you're like, whoa, he's playing like that. And being able to sing like that, and in between like not every singer can sing in between stuff while they're playing bass.
Right.
Yeah. And as a writer, his lyrics just are, untouchable. He's
insightful too. Like,
yeah.
Got a dude who knew like, okay, we all just got to work out our differences and come together. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
At the core of his writing is like, I've been through so much,
So listen, we keep nerding out on everything.
I knew this was going to happen, but let's get back on track.
Everything that we love. So let's talk. I listened to Barrage of Noise today. I went back and listened to that. And I know you guys, I feel like I'm not out of my mind when I say you guys toured. That's like over 20 years ago, Barrage of Noise.
It's crazy. It really is.
I think you guys came through Texas.
Yeah, we did.
And some friends of mine went to the show and brought me a shirt. I have a Hirax shirt, Barrage of Noise shirt. Crazy. I went back and listened to that, and it reminded me how much of a crossover band Hirax actually was, still is. I feel like the hardcore and the thrash and the punk element and the dystopian lyrics, the Armageddon type of, maybe the cliche, if you will, is still so fun.
Yeah. For me, it's also a little more deeper though, because I really studied war history.
Yeah,
that's the one where I'm kind of a freak. I'm probably a lot of my generation too, because my dad was in the Navy for 30 years, so there was always books around the house about war and what could happen. And my dad at night, when we'd sit down to eat at the table, 6 kids, he would talk about how incredibly powerful our army was because he worked for the service. So he knew a lot. Like he was a signalman on a ship,
wow.
Yeah. So about what he would scare the hell out of us, basically saying how lethal we are. He said we have weapons that people won't even see for 20 years from now. Like, my dad really knew his stuff. So that's kind of one of those things that's kind of infused in me. But what's really weird with those kinds of themes is over the years, especially where we're at now, they're still relevant. So that's kind of why I still have a bit of that in me, because over the years, like especially where we're at right now in this world, history's completely repeating itself, but in a bigger and more insane way.
Yeah.
Well, the crossover thing though for us was natural because we were open-minded as it was. So we didn't think it was wrong to listen to punk music or hardcore and listen to metal. But there were still people fighting and stuff in the earlier days about that, physically fighting at shows. But we just never saw that. We went to punk shows, we went to metal shows, we obviously went to more metal shows, but we went to a lot of hardcore and punk shows. And when Hirax started out, we got helped by mostly punk organizations like SST Records. A lot of people don't know that, but they helped us out from the very beginning. And then also Maximum Rock and Roll magazine in San Francisco, along with Pusshead, the artist. Those guys, they were hip to us way early. Like Pusshead got us our real first deal, which was actually Earache Records. Before they became Earache, they put out this compilation called The Angelic and Scrape Addict Flexi Disc. It was a flexi disc. And Pusshead got us this deal with Earache Records. That's the first record they ever released.
And if correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Pusshead do a record cover or a shirt for you guys?
He did the very first album.
That's what I thought. And that was that the Metal Blade release?
The first album. But we would go to his house and there would be like Gas Tank and Jism would be there and The Accused. So we were meeting all these bands that were crossover bands before they really were coined crossover. That had an influence on us as well. I mean, obviously we have our hard rock roots and heavy metal roots and thrash metal and speedcore, whatever, crossover, whatever you want to call it. But that really is it's a core value to us because we also are entertained by shorter songs as well as longer songs. So we kind of try to mix that in there. But we're totally proud of that. But definitely a thrash metal band too at the same point. But crossover, we helped a lot of those bands in the beginning, like DRI got signed to Metal Blade Records because of us, and they started a new division called Death Records. And Death Records had bands that we were telling Brian, like, dude, you got to check out DRI. You got to check out Dr. No. You got to check out COC, all those bands. Right after, if you look when we were putting out our records, those guys came in right after that. Cryptic Slaughter, all those guys were at our shows, and we're proud of that, though. Like, it's really cool when you see bands become successful that were either at your shows or got turned on to your music, it's like the highest compliment you can ever get, especially if the band's brutal. Like we've met bands like Deicide, and they're like their drummer, when he was 15, he heard the first Hirax record. So the last time we were just in Atlanta, we did a show out there, and Deicide played one of the nights that we were out there. So we went and saw them, and I went back and said hi to the drummer for the first time and said, dude, I read an interview where you brought us up, and I just wanted to say that's awesome that you pay it forward like that. It's really, really cool. When you get, certain connections with musicians, like even with me and you, there's a respect after a while that's just, it's, there no matter what.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then when you meet these guys and they're fucking awesome and they're really smart, and they well, to me they are, and they really, because music to me is so important too. So when you have that same love, and if you're still doing it after 30 or 40 years, you're a maniac. And so I just really respect that. So whenever I see musicians, I try to go out of my way and say hello, or if they do the same, it's mind blowing to me. Like even for me, as being in Hirax and a crossover band, the bands that like us is mind blowing to me. Like sometimes I can't even believe it, or they're in certain bands that are pretty big, and I'm like, that's insane to me. So it's the compliment to me. Just if anybody is influenced by you, right there, you've done something pretty good.
Yeah. Well,
that's the nerd in you. That's the nerd in you. That's the why you look at the high voltage album covers, upside down and backwards, because you're reading all the little fine print, and that stuff's important to you. So when somebody from Deicide or another band compliments you or cites you as an influence, you take that to heart, man, because you appreciate that sentiment in those words because it really means something to you.
Yeah, and I respect the music, like even with bands that I love, and there's a lot of bands that I've grown up on, but when there's mistakes made, you got to also own up to that too. So for me, coming from this movement, the pressure, I will say there's a bit of pressure because you really know what you're getting yourself into. If you're doing a certain style of music, you know what your audience likes and what they don't like.
Yeah.
So going forward, as you do more records, you start really being hard on yourself, even though you don't really want to be, but it just ends up happening because you care so much about the music. So meeting the other musicians is always pretty awesome because they kind of know what you're going through.
Yeah, of course.
But it's also inspiring because if there's a dude that likes your band and you love his band too, you're like, I got to do better. I got to do better every time.
Yeah, because now you can't let him down. It's not just about, it's like, okay.
So you're like, wow, man, that's awesome.
It's like, I don't want to let myself down, and I also don't want to let down the drummer from Deicide. So this has
not
to be
at all.
good.
And he's also really good. So like, I got to watch them. I've seen him before, but at this show I watched him, and for what he, it's also about what lane you're in. But the lane that he's in, he's probably one of the best at what he does. I mean, the guy technically is superior compared to a lot of drummers. So watching him was mind blowing, and I'm like, kid, like, that's great. When he was 16 or 15, whatever age he was, that was a little bit of a trigger. So to me, it's just flattering.
That's awesome.
Sure.
That's awesome.
Hey, I don't want to get too name droppy on you, but let's talk about Ron McGovney for a second.
Yes.
That's a heavy one.
You still friends with him?
I'm sure we talk. We haven't talked in years. Not that we hate each other. It's none of that. It's
Well,
just that.
I wouldn't think. No,
but we're really honest. Like he would do the same. If he was on here, he'd be really honest. Me and him are like brothers. So here and there, we don't get along. But I love him. We had a certain period of our lives where we spent a lot of time together.
Yeah.
And those were like the heaviest times. It's like right after he left Metallica.
Yeah.
I was friends with him for up until probably early 90s. Early 90s.
Okay.
But so I saw him have to deal with being and let's be honest about this. When you're out of the biggest band in the world, still, if you think about it, I mean, I have other bands I prefer massively, but no disrespect to Metallica.
No,
but they're probably the biggest band in the world.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah.
So for all these years that they've been big, Ron's had to deal with that. He's like the Pete Best of the Beatles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pete Best was their original drummer.
Right.
Ron's their original bass player.
Right.
So to go from Metallica to not being in Metallica, and then if you're still on the scene, everywhere you go, you see Metallica shirts.
Yeah.
I mean, he's had to deal with stuff that none of us can even imagine. I mean, some people have missed a big opportunity, but that was a huge opportunity that just didn't work out. Who knows? Metallica might not have made it had he stayed. Who knows? You never know. But
right. Well, it's not his fault. It's not anything that he did, but I understand the ploy of how rough it must have been for him personally as a young man, as a teenager, to have to go through what it is that you're describing. He's a teenager.
And he's still going to early metal shows. He's still going, like our shows and hanging out. Everybody going, oh, you used to be in Metallica. They're rising.
Sure.
Like 85, they're just doing this like a rocket.
Right.
Yeah.
All of us had to watch that.
We could turn this into a Metallica episode easily, but what I want to talk about is the good times you had with the band that you had, Phantasm.
Yes.
No, it was great. That was really cool because me and Ron were hanging out drinking all the time.
Oh.
And I was just like, dude, you can't take this sitting down. You got to get out there and play again. Like I go, look at Dave Mustaine. Mustaine, I love that guy. And I'm one of the people that actually can say I've never had any problems with him. Like some people have these different stories about Mustaine, but I love him. He rules. We were born in the same month, a day apart. I never even really knew that. Yeah, but that we're both Virgos. For some reason, me and him get along great.
Awesome.
But he took it like he got out there with fire in his veins. He was so pissed when he got kicked out of Metallica. He wasn't going to take it sitting down. So I was kind of doing the same with Ron McGovney. I'm like, dude, people care. You should get out there and play. So we after drinking for like 3 years of him being out of Metallica, something like that, probably a little bit longer, but we just would always hang out. Finally got him to pull out his bass out of the case, and I'm like, dude, that bass alone, look at that thing. It's like the early Metallica bass. I think it's a Wish Washburn.
Okay.
Pretty sure Washburn bass.
Yeah.
He pulls out the white early Metallica bass that he did all the earliest shows when they went up to the Bay Area, when they were first breaking the Bay Area. Right. People got to give Ron credit for that. He had a lot to do with that.
Well, he's an OG. He's part of the catalyst. He's part of the genesis of something.
He does deserve.
I look at Ron McGovney the same way I look at someone like Paul Di'Anno, even though it's a different scale, maybe of.
Yeah, but that's a good way of putting it. That's a perfect.
He's part of a genesis of something, so it's respectable. So the fact that you're championing Ron McGovney to get back out there, and you guys form a band and release something,
it was going to be really good. The only problem is alcohol and speed, because back in the 80s that was huge, and we were drinking a lot more than even the speed. We drank night and day. And when you got a bunch of young kids, like me and Ron were the old men of the band, and we were barely probably 23, 24.
Yeah.
The other guys were like 18. Right. You shouldn't even be partying like that when you're 18. I mean, we drank way more than you should be drinking. Kegers of beer at the house where you have to finish it the next day because you like get up in the morning, you're out there trying to finish a keg that you have to that kind of drinking.
So wait, you feel like you have to finish it. You don't have to. They don't tell you that you don't have to. You just put it out at the street and take it back. It's a rental. You just get rid of it.
When you're a young kid, you're stupid and you just go for it.
Yeah,
so
it's a challenge.
Yeah.
So we didn't get as well as we should have. I think also the problem was we started getting pretty good gigs right off the bat because Ron was in the band.
Yeah. So
we were already doing shows with the Plasmatics. We were touring with Nuclear Assault.
Awesome.
Going good. And we had Gloria back then she was with Sacred Right and Flotsam and Jetsam, but Gloria, who married Max from Sepultura.
Okay, right. Yeah.
She was doing our shows when we would come to Arizona and stuff. So it was going really well. We had record deal meetings with Capitol Records and stuff, but we were so into partying, it just didn't work out. And it's sad because the demo is pretty damn good. Like for a demo that was done by a bunch of young kids, and a really cool fact about the demo is we had Rocky George was also in the band. A lot of people don't know that.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I think I knew that and forgot that.
And he had to leave because they were getting ready to record Join the Army. So Mike Muir was like, dude, we need your focus to be over here. And I get it. So he had to go back to do the Join the Army record. And then we recorded the demo with Gene Hoglan on the drums. And Gene was, dude, I've known Gene before he was playing drums. So Gene coming in, he goes, if you're doing something with Ron, I want to play. So Gene Hoglan comes in and he's such a good drummer. It was ridiculous.
My God, yeah.
Like
I lived on his mom's sofa over there on Los Arcos Street for about a week.
I know exactly where that's
Of course you do.
You know, Lisa, his sister, then too. Yeah, that's classic.
Yeah.
She did all the early banners, all the banners for Savage Break.
Yeah, Lisa Hogan. Yeah. See, I knew this was going to happen between me and you.
That's right. You were right off the freeway, dude. Right where the freeway is, you were right off.
Yeah, you open the front door and stand in the front yard and look to the right, and there's the wall. This the front. You're literally correct.
You are killing it right now. You're killing me with all this stuff.
Yeah.
So,
I'm glad you brought up Phantasm because I have that on my list of notes here. Because on paper, that band, you got Ron McGovney, Gene Hoglan. I didn't know about Rocky George.
oh my God.
You're singing, and I'm thinking to myself, why did this not turn into something bigger?
We should have also just said somebody manage us right off the bat. Like we should have got Debbie Abono from the Bay Area to manage us because she
would have taken you on.
And she would have known how to handle us because
That's
she was incredible. Like to work with Possessed and Exodus and Testament and all those bands at the same time. That lady was, So, but we were just too crazy. But the thing about Gene, and then we did one rehearsal with Gene and Rocky, and it was one of the most amazing things I've ever been a part of. And Rocky was such a good guitar player. It was ridiculous because he walked in, he drug in his Marshall half stack. He just drags it in. I'm like, dude, most guys carry that shit in all nice and set it. Drags it in like it's equipment, like he was working on a job. I'm not kidding you. Then he goes out, he pulls his guitar out of his car, and it's not even in a case.
Right.
And he walks in with it, throws the head on top of it, plugs in, has like 2 pedals, and is ready to go.
Yeah.
I'm like, this dude is a ringer, you know. And but one of the best rehearsals I've ever been a part of. I mean, to hear Rocky George doing solos like fucking Yngwie Malmsteen and shit, and meets Uli John Roth, basically like John Roth and Hendrix type shit coming out of that guy playing thrash metal.
Yeah.
He's an unbelievable player.
Underrated.
Yeah.
You know who I met? I met Rocky George at a Slayer show at a small club. It was Slayer, Possessed, and Dark Angel.
Ooh.
And me and Rocky George were the only 2 black kids stage diving, and we actually hit each other. And then a minute later on in the bathroom, because we were washing our faces off in the sink, because at those gigs it used to be so hot.
Yeah.
That we would go to the bathroom to just throw water all over ourselves, which nowadays people be like, you guys are gross, but that's just how we did it back in those days. And so I ended up talking to Rocky George, and we became friends from that point on.
Of course.
I wanted to ask you about that. You said earlier in our conversation that when we were talking about Bill Metoyer, that you were saying at some point you thought of yourself as the odd man out, and now you bring up Rocky George, and I don't really know how to say this in a politically correct way, but I'm just going to ask you. You seem like a really chill dude.
Yeah,
so was there any issues with you being accepted by the thrash metal crowd back in the day because you're a black dude?
That's right.
And I asked this because, you know, you were talking about your dad being a career military guy. Same with me. And so I moved around a lot. And when I was in junior high school, I went to a predominantly black school. So all my friends were black dudes. And this is about the time I'm discovering music. So they're turning me on to Parliament Funkadelic, Rick James, the Commodores, and I'm turning them on to Kiss and AC/DC and Van Halen. So we were sort of commingling and we were learning from each other, you know. So I'm just curious to know, because now you're in the thrash metal crossover hardcore scene, which is a whole nother, you know, extreme. So what was it like for you personally in that scene? And
by the way, you asked that question perfectly. I don't know what the new generations trip on with black, whatever. I get it, but at the same time, like, we come from a different generation.
Yeah,
I'm pretty much like a hardened criminal when it comes to, you know, profanity and fucking, I mean, even this interview, I feel like we're being very PC because we're not cussing like we would have done in the 80s, you know. But
we're
feel
also
free to if you'd like, but
yeah, it doesn't matter. It's because we're, like you say, I like to call it men of a certain age, people
Yeah,
people of
Yeah.
a certain age. Yeah.
I think I wanted to ask the question because I think it's valid, but I also
It
want to be respectful and sensitive to the nature of
very
the question.
valid.
So,
And I got to drop. Speaking of dropping some names, this is kind of a question where you would do it. Like for me, there were bands that paved the way even before me, so I was influenced to want to do it even more because I saw a couple of bands. It's like when you see a chocolate chip that doesn't have enough chocolate chips on it. I saw a couple of sprinkles. I saw a band called E-Trope from
Yeah.
Chicago.
Yeah, with
And
a Z. Yep.
Yeah, and then Snow White.
That's
Snow White.
I got you. That's the Tofola brothers.
Yeah, amazing.
Yep.
They're a footnote that should be mentioned. Like anytime somebody like me does an interview, if I can, I try to drop those guys' names because they should be back on. And the first two records are amazing. Like if you check out the first two Snow White records,
Yeah.
wow. Like
Ian, the guitar player, reached out to me not long ago on social media. I guess it's a couple of years ago now, but I tripped out because we did a gig. Watchtower did a gig with E-Trope, and no, it's not E-Trope. It's Snow White that I'm talking about. I'm thinking about Snow White. That's the Tofola brothers.
Yeah.
That's the Tofola brothers. Is Snow White.
Exactly.
But in E-Trope, who is in E-Trope that you're bringing up?
It's the same guys. You're talking about, okay. See, that's how you get them mixed up because they both got Z's. They both have a Z in front of their name, like Snow White.
That's right. That's why I'm thinking Snow White and the Tofola.
But it was
brothers.
I
apologize.
Barry Stern, the drummer.
Barry Stern, who joined Trouble later on.
Yeah,
he was in E-Trope. Yep.
Talk about a great little history lesson there from E-Trope to Trouble.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Not bad at all.
Yeah. Great drummer. Just he's one of those guys, like, you know how in every band there's at least one dude who does all the networking. So it would be like for me, for Hirax, it was me. For say Possessed, it was Jeff Becerra.
Yep.
For you, it'd be you because certain guys take the rings, and not everybody wants to go to the post office and drop off the mail.
Yeah. Right.
So that's what I was doing, and that's how I got to know Barry Stern. He was the guy that was dropping off the mail and the pen paling and all the dudes I knew were basically my pen pals. Even in Europe, which is awesome because when I look back on it now, like me and Quorthon were pen pals.
Wow.
Me and Millie, before they were called Creator, we were pen pals.
Wow.
And Tom G. Warrior, we were straight up because I heard Hellhammer, and for some reason when I heard Hellhammer, it just clicked. I was like, no way, I've got to track down more of this band. That band just floored me.
I was going to bring up Tom Warrior in our conversation for sure. But back to what Dave's question was emulating here. Let's get back into that because I think it's very valid.
Problem is, you got three nerds talking, and it's gonna get off subject.
derail on a dime.
Yeah, big time. But no, it's a very valid question, and an important question because there are a lot of kids, not a ton of them, but even when you go to metal shows, there's always 3 or 4 black guys out there, man. Everybody, and also the people that don't give a shit like me, there should be more because like I listen to everything, but I'm definitely a metalhead, and I'm a proud metalhead. So going to shows for me is a whole ritual. It's like a couple of records before the show. If I'm not driving, a couple of beers, before I even leave the house. And then when I get there, relax a little bit, see some friends that I haven't seen in a while. It's always a family reunion.
Yeah.
So with back to the question of being a black guy in metal, there were some challenges, but not many. Because luckily with me, I think people see what they see, and either they love it or don't, and that's okay. Because luckily, coming from a service background with a dad like yours, who was in the Navy my dad was in the Navy for a long time, 30 years. So he was one of those guys that was always, not everybody's going to like you.
Right. Yeah.
Straight up. Like, so I had that was a good thing to have a dad that was a hard ass like that. Like, so it made it easier to get into music. So I was that was my whole mindset. But here and there, there'd be some stuff, but nothing really crazy. I mean, later on in life, one time, this is a pretty heavy story, but it's not really, you can't judge a whole race. So just please don't do that when I tell this story, because it's not about a whole race. It's about a certain economic time. We were touring through Poland, And I love Poland, and it got even better. So this story might sound a little sad in the beginning, but it gets better. Okay. But we had a night off, and I love when we have a night off because we can unwind and not have to play immediately. Yeah, you have a couple beers, maybe more, whatever. It depends on your set time the next day. So we went out to Poland and we were drinking, and we had a really good show set up. There was us, Sodom, and Death Angel the next night.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, that's just insane, especially in Europe. Europe's a whole nother level when it comes to live shows, and especially if you put 3 headliners together. But went out and we went to one bar where they were like, hey, you probably shouldn't come in here. And I'm like, I've never, ever had that happen, ever in my life. Wow. And it actually hit me pretty bad. Like when I was really bummed, like that sucks. If you've never been through that, like I live in America, I can come and go pretty much where I want. I mean, yeah, there's been hairy times where you go, there's certain biker gangs that you just don't play around when they're in a bar. Yeah. I respect that. There's a certain level, and I live in California. We got plenty of biker gangs, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But anyways, they basically said really what it is. It's the times we're living in right now. Poland was having where there were a lot of people that weren't employed. Yeah. At this time, we were touring through there, so there were some guys in the bar that were drunk and not very happy. So they didn't really want to see any foreigners, It wasn't just my skin color. It was a couple of things. Like these guys were basically drinking their sorrows away.
Yeah.
So we just went back to the hotel because it was such a depressing thing because I'd never had that happen. And we just ate and drank some beers and went to sleep. Try to, not think about it. Next day we get to the show. It's totally sold out. There's over 800 Polish headbangers there, loving every minute of it. Awesome. So there are sometimes you might go through something a little bummer, and it's sad to you, but you just got to carry on because if you sit around with your life and worry about what people think of you, no matter what your skin color is or what music you're getting into. I mean, I always knew that I was going to be something different because I like the music that there's a lot of Black people that like metal. There are, but not all of them go to shows. Not all of them talk about it. Like you'd be surprised how many don't even talk about it. And that's kind of sad. Yeah. But for me, I'm a very loudmouth supporter of heavy metal, and I always will be. So, but yeah, it's not been a ton of it, but you run into a little bit of stuff. And sometimes you just got to use your own skull, your own brain and think, this person's already miserable as it is. Like if you're a musician, and I don't even care, what gender or what style of music, glam rules for that reason alone. Like if you think of bands like Hanoi Rocks, yeah, they rule just for changing the game.
Yeah.
And with the Dolls. The Dolls deserve so much credit too. These bands actually changed the game. But you just got to have a thick skin, and I realize that. So I just keep going on, and I know that luckily when you play a show, and this is back to even just somebody looking like you or not looking like you. When a kid comes up to me that has an afro, and say they're a white kid with an afro and red hair, to me that's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm there to support all the people that are a little different too, yes. And I proudly say that because that's one of the reasons I got into this music.
Don't take this the wrong way. Take it as the biggest compliment, all hail the weirdos kind of shit. But you're a unicorn.
Yeah, I'll take that.
You're a unicorn. It's rare. It can be a rare sighting to befriend a unicorn, to work with a unicorn, and then and this is the best part, you don't totally forget because you cherish the unicorn. You love the unicorn, but sometimes when you get busy and you're all in the moment, you forget there's a unicorn in the room.
But like I said, sometimes you also got to look at it. Somebody doesn't like your music, or even you read a review. You got to think that person, there's something a little more there than you even know. So don't trip out too hard. Like even for me, I feel like Hirax kind of represents the weirdo or the person that wasn't really the cool kid in school till maybe later. Yeah. I kind of don't mind that. Like even the success we've had, it's been gradual, and at least it's gradual, even if it's slow. And I never was into those bands that were overnight sensations anyways. Like even if you look at all of our record collections, you'll be looking through there going, these were bands that slowly kind of climbed. Even Motorhead, come on, people. Yeah. That band was still climbing as far as I'm concerned because they were never the norm, and Lemmy's voice wasn't the normal radio voice,
He was a unicorn.
Yeah, totally. He was like the leader of the Unicorns.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
One of the things that's coming across to me during this conversation, and I love it, is just your positive outlook, man. I mean, it's reared its head probably 100 times in the course of this conversation.
Dave, I've heard this. I've heard rumors of the positive attitude that Katon has always had.
I'll be real with you. To still be alive, especially, I guess I even look at it this way. If you lived in the 80s and you're still alive, it's probably because you lived in the 80s. Because, I mean, the nightclubs alone, if you even think about the way the restrooms were in those nightclubs, that you lived through that. So I just feel like while you're still around, especially now, we should be so stoked, man. Like, for what we're talking through computers right now.
Right? I know.
I feel like once you get past the 80s, the rest of this shit is free.
Yeah. Well, these kids, I hate to say it because we are the older guys, but the kids, they really have no idea, man. Like, in a way they've got it great, but in a way they've got it bad. Like, we still got to look at album covers. Like, now they're getting, they're buying vinyl, but we've been looking at it for 30, 40, 50 years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So there's a bonus there where there's some older people don't realize that. They should be stoked. And so for me, being 59, being 60 in September is awesome that I'm still running around trying to be a freak on stage and still holding up not too bad. Like, I haven't fallen apart completely yet. And so I just think you got to look at all the bonuses you've got. Like, we lost a lot of friends, especially in the last 3 years. And then even in the last year, like even Bob Nalbandian.
Yeah. I was going to bring up Bob.
You should definitely bring him up. I mean, what a great spearhead for the whole scene. Like, all of us, that guy was out there championing this music.
Yeah.
I mean, he really championed it. Like, and he wasn't even one of those like guys that had an ego. He just really humble, down to earth, trying to help out for the right reasons. He wasn't doing it to try to get over on anybody. He was doing it for pure love. So Bob Nalbandian, everybody says his name a little different, so I'm trying to make sure I say his last name correctly. And I've known him for 40 years.
No worries.
But that guy, when I first met him, he was actually helping out bands like Slayer when they were still wearing spandex and makeup.
Yeah.
He was helping out bands that were pre-Slayer, Bitch, August Red Moon, which is a very rare band that most people don't even talk about.
Yeah, I remember them.
He managed August Red Moon. He worked with Armored Saint for up until death. He worked for Armored Saint, Megadeth.
I used to hear, because I'm friends with the Armored Saint guys.
Hey, cheers for you, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, not bad, huh?
But don't derail me.
Yeah, we've heard this story a few times on the podcast.
Be careful. Okay, where was I? Yeah, Bob, the Mad Armenian. I read that on the back of early Armored Saint records before I met him, and I did meet Bob at. Here's some name dropping for you. This is God, what part of LA is it? It doesn't matter. I'll think of it in a minute. I was at Michelle Meldrum's house.
One of the most awesome musicians ever.
Yes. And
let's not get derailed. Keep going.
Bob Nalbandian in the house. In the house is what I consider to be some kind of, on many different levels, probably as a royalty that I didn't even like put in any perspective when I walked into the room. It's Michelle's house, so there's that. But Bob Nalbandian, hey Jason, this is Bob Nalbandian. I'm like, I know this name. Okay, don't freak out. And this is Bruce Bouillet. What? You know who Bruce is, right? Bruce, and this is Rocky George.
That's rad.
So, two of the best guitar players on the West Coast with Bruce and Rocky, and Bob Nalbandian, the Mad Armenian, all sitting there at the dinner table at Michelle's house. This would have been in like 1986.
Yeah, that's
or something
awesome.
like that. Maybe 87. And that's when I met Bob. And then I realized as the years went by because we all remembered each other from those moments. Like I got to play bass with Gene Hoglan on drums and Rocky George on guitar, playing
Beautiful.
Ace of Spades at the Whiskey at Michelle's wake, her celebration of life.
Yeah, she was amazing.
And that was unbelievable. But the point that I'm making is Bob, like as you said, like championed all of these bands, and then later on became So you've known him, or you knew him, so like you're saying 40 years.
Yeah, way back, and it was great because he really was one of the first. Like he had a fanzine, and even just the ads in it. It was like the ad for the first Slayer record. Like where they're all over the altar, where there's the girl that's laying on the altar all bloody. And it's like one of the most classic early Slayer photos.
Yeah.
He was working with them like that. The first time I saw Slayer, they were opening for August Redman, and they did half covers and half originals.
Do you remember some of the covers they were doing?
Yeah, Rapid Fire by Judas Priest, Highway Star, Deep Purple.
Kick ass.
That's just off the top of my head, but I do remember it. Like seriously, I could close my eyes, be back in that club.
Wow.
And there weren't that many people at that Slayer show either.
And Bob's fanzine was called The Headbanger.
Yeah, really cool little fanzine. It was like quarter size.
Yeah. Do you have any copies of that?
Yeah, my archives, but my archives is a nightmare. So,
I
feel sorry for whoever's got to dig through it when I'm gone. Because what the hell was this guy thinking? Got so much stuff, it's ridiculous, and that's the stuff I was able to keep over the years. There's so much I didn't like. You know how it is. Like, where are you going to put all that hard stuff at?
Open that closet door.
I lost a lot of it in like rain damage and shit like that. So it's very sad story to think like that. So okay, there's Ron and there's Bob, and just a moment to think about Bob, because it's just terrible. Fuck cancer.
It sucks. It totally sucks. And also Bob was such a rad dude that not really anybody knew. Because some people are private. I get that. Like, I don't know what I would do. I mean, I don't even want to think about it, but I don't know when you're, that is told to you, what do you do? Do you tell everybody? Do you not? I don't think he told very many people. Like, luckily, I had a couple of his other close friends get a hold of me, and that made me feel better because he actually had mentioned me. So that was like, kind of making. I mean, I actually cried, and not that I don't cry, because we all cry. Yeah. But like, there's not that many men that I've cried over in my life. There's a handful.
Well, Bob is worth some tears, because he was.
Well, also, just that I knew he would have been doing even more. Because he even did that last series on LA Metal, which he deserves. Like, now there should be some posthumous award, because if he wouldn't have done it, who knows who would have done it. Right. And he was talking about bands that, like, even for me, were like the dinosaurs of LA rock. Like, there was this band called A La Carte. He brought them up. He brought up Snow, which was Carlos Cavazos' first band before he joined Quiet Riot. Yeah. Which for us, Snow was like, they should have been like third or fourth runner-up out of the LA bands. They should have been huge.
I might have something with Snow, like a
look up there. There's a 10-inch white EP. Snow, it makes sense because Snow is white. But anyways, Snow, 10-inch EP. Carlos Cavazo from Quiet Riot plays guitar on it with his brother on bass. It's amazing. There's a song called Crack the Whip. Okay. Look up Crack the Whip by Snow. But they also, the thing that's crazy about Snow, I'll just tell you this real quick because it's a little nerd thing, but we'll move on. Snow did a song called What a Drag, No More Booze, and that became the song Mental Health. That's what Mental Health came from.
Oh, wow.
That big riff, that down, 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 down. Yeah. It used to be, what a drag, no more booze. And we used to go see them in the clubs. And that was one of the first club bands I got to see was Snow.
Wow. Man.
So it's great when you get to see a riff like that become a huge, like, Mental Health. That's what everybody knows Quiet Riot for.
Yeah.
They just don't know.
I had no idea. I was aware of Snow, but I didn't know that was the origins of Mental Health. And
it came from Snow, and that was their closing song. What a drag, no more booze. they probably, if they see this podcast, they're gonna be stoked because like their band was so good. They had this drummer that was like he's still around, but like he was the guy that influenced me probably the most out of the bands that I saw, and he was a drummer.
Wow.
Yeah, he used to stand up, have his sticks going, be up on top of the floor toms. He was amazing, and still be able to play incredible drums.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of
Bob championed all that. So for him to talk about, bands that just don't get any of that credit. I mean, we had bands. There was a band called Foreplay. They were like the Aerosmith of LA.
Wow.
And they were good, but they were so much like Aerosmith. Where were they going to really go? But they were like before you had tribute bands and cover bands.
Yeah.
But they did all originals. But Foreplay was the Aerosmith of LA.
They had that sleazy Rolling Stones kind of thing going on.
Pretty nasty, all that. But
that's just cool.
Yeah.
Totally. Back to Another Band, first 5 albums, Aerosmith. Come on.
Yeah.
By the time you get to Rocks, it's over. That album's insane.
Yeah. That there's a couple songs on it that are downright scary. Combination.
The production is so big when that record opens up, Back in the Saddle, when it opens up.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
That's Jack Douglas, I think, isn't it?
Yes, you nailed it. That's from reading those credits, man.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So what's next for Hirax? I don't think you've done. Is Immortal Legacy the last recording that you?
Yeah, that was the last one. That's the other problem. Like with Hirax, and we've done pretty good for a band who puts out records like every 4 or 9 years. But now there's good stuff in the works. Like it's funny, all that stuff ends up being who you are at the later on in life. So everything that we've done up until this point has helped. It's been like kind of like setting up dominoes, but hopefully they don't all fall. But, you're slowly setting up pieces in its place. And the new record's going to be great because it's, for one, we're hungry after 3 years of what we just went through.
Yeah.
We already were hungry before that. But if you put 3 years of pressure and craziness and sadness and happiness and sadness and happiness into a blender, that's basically what the new record's gonna be. I'm sure a lot of bands could say that, but I've had a lot of time to think about stuff and how I want to do it, all the way down to the artwork. I mean, certain artists I'm already in touch with, which some of it gets scary because some of these guys are pricey, but you want your art to be killer, all that stuff. And the songs, I want them to be memorable, like not just get the production right, but I want there to be more riffs. Because, like when you listen to a lot of records, you got these guys doing riffs, but how many do you really remember?
Right.
That would be just, even going back to our old roots, whether it be Ronnie Montrose or Billy Gibbons, there's got to be more licks, more riffs, even if it's metal.
Well, one of my favorite riffs of all time, as far as thrash metal goes, is Chemical Warfare. It's one note. It's one note.
Incredible.
But you never forget it because it's a pattern. I call it Morse code. Right?
Next time we do this,
and then the kick drums play the riff.
That's because Dave's incredible. That's just very creative drumming, and Dave's always had that. That dude's a special, special person, man. Like, there's not too many octopuses out there that play drums like that,
Right. Yeah. So, did you know? You probably know that Gene Hoglan was holding down the kick drums.
Yeah.
When they recorded that.
Gene was there early, man. He really was. He was like the younger dude, but he was there. Don't get me wrong. And he really changed Dark Angel once he came in. Yeah. Was able to showcase what he could do, because he's not just a drummer. I mean, I think the Darkness Descends and the next record's mostly him writing after a while.
Yeah, too. He wrote lyrics and wrote guitar riffs and might have even played rhythm guitar.
Yeah, that's where he's a bit like Neil Peart. He's a bit like that guy.
Or Charlie Benante.
Yeah, Charlie's incredible too. Like, everybody has different feelings about Anthrax, but if you get down to the drumming on that band, that dude is a master.
Well, he's writing the riffs too.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah. He's really good. Yeah. But Gene, man, I'm actually so happy for that guy. Like, he's done what he's wanted to do. He's doing it his way. He's actually really too smart. A lot of people don't realize how smart Gene is. He's ridiculously smart.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, and he's
got Dark Angel full time now. and they just announced some shows. They're finally playing in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I'm glad for that. I mean, I think it's kind of like that whole thing, like with Metallica. Like at least you got Megadeth out of it, you know. Like with Gene, he might have left Testament, but he left him on a high note, and he's also getting back to, you know, he knows. Also, it's kind of his thing. Like if you look at Dark Angel, and I love Jim Durkin's like one of my best friends. Love that guy.
Awesome. Yeah, I love
the
Jim.
guy who pretty much is now Dark Angel is pretty much Gene, so he's got to run it his way, and I get that. Like,
yeah.
After a while, when you've been doing this for a while, you can work with a lot of people, but all of us kind of got a little bit of a dick side to us. Like, you've been doing this for a while, like you should do it your way all the way to the end. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not
well,
saying,
it's not really like it's not like a rough, like a dick. You're not a dick if you're talking with your heart.
Yeah.
So
I think some people take it the wrong way, because I've seen over the years, even me as a singer, people sometimes get the wrong idea because you're in charge of a lot of shit that nobody else wants to be in charge of.
Right.
Whenever you're the guy that's got to go deal with the business side of things, that's when you've got to be hard, because if you don't, you get screwed.
Right.
But not everybody understands that. If they're the one that has to collect the money, or make sure the band gets taken care of, where everybody gets to sleep comfortably and travel comfortably, you have to be a little bit of a hard person to deal with all that, because there's people that don't want to give you sometimes what you're supposed to get.
That's right.
Just being honest. I mean, it's not rock star shit at all, man. It's really
it's
survival.
Management.
It's just survival.
It's human stuff. Like being in a band is a lot, man. It's a lot of making sure everybody's heads are in the right place. Is everybody healthy? Is nobody tripping on drugs?
Right.
All these different things that do matter in being a band. So
you don't want to get to the gig and say, "Where's the bass player?"
Yeah, I mean, I have to get all our guys together. That's enough as it is, So. Right. I mean, it's something that we love, and that's why we're still doing it. And we go through all the hard stuff that nobody ever sees behind the scenes. They think it's all beautiful, and there's a lot of stinky vans and buses and hotel rooms where there's not enough rooms for everybody. So sometimes guys got to crash 2 on a bed,
Yeah.
But we do it because we love the music, and it's not a big deal that people don't know all this stuff, but we're just being honest about it, and that's why talking to you guys. You guys get it because you've been around and you see how it works,
Let's talk about the Hirax logo. I'm so glad you still use that. How did you, so Dave may know, he may not, Tom G. Warrior created that logo for you. How did you, I mean, Dave, when you think about or look at the Hirax logo, and then you look at the Celtic Frost logo.
Yeah, I can see it. The twisted letters, they're all kind of gnarled.
The thorns.
Yeah.
The thorns. Yeah. That's 100% Tom Warrior.
How'd that happen?
Yeah, the thing about him, he's just a fucking awesome dude. And it almost kind of freaks me out. He's so cool, because I see how well he does and how he carries himself and how he's done his own stuff. Like, the dude is a triple, fourple, fifple threat. Like, he can draw, he can write lyrics, he can put songs together, he can record. He has a thing that he's been doing for a long time, and you can see it in his work. Like, I have a lot of respect for him. So just over the years, it was just the beginning of, I loved his band. He liked us a lot. We would be tape trading, which brought a lot of us together. And he said, I want to help promote your band. And I'm like, that's insane. So whatever he needed, he wanted photos, I go to the post office and mail them out, And so he had this letter that he used to send out called, it was Prowling Death Management, where he promoted Hellhammer and Celtic Frost and Hirax, and he had a couple other bands. I think one was called Messiah. Yeah, Messiah was one of the other bands, and he had something else like Drifter or something.
That's another Zurich band.
Yeah, dude. Now you're really showing your nerd colors, dude.
Well, I wore a Drifter shirt in a Watchtower promo photo.
So, that's insane.
Yeah,
I love that stuff. Yeah. So he I'd sent him the first Hirax demo, 4-song demo, and he goes, I love the demo, but I hate your logo. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, he writes back, he goes, do you mind if I design a logo? I'm like, go for it. Because back then we were still really young and we hadn't really gotten to where we're at now. So like it was a different time where he was a younger musician, and he's a fan too. Like even Tom W is a fan, people. So and that's what makes him so good. Like even him as an artist, his taste in music blows me away. Like he brings up funk music and stuff that, you know, some guys won't admit to liking, and I love that. I like a lot of funk myself, and I think that it helps you as a musician to even listen to that music because there's stuff going on that you'll pick up and go, I could probably do that in metal and it would sound killer because Eddie Van Halen's done a damn good job at throwing funk into some of them Van Halen tracks.
Yeah. Well, ZZ Top is funk. Led Zeppelin is funk. And no one realized that. And when you say that, they might even get mad at you. And they go, you tell me that you
John Bonham.
That's funk.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, and ZZ Top, that's all funk.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's funky, man. That's ripping funk.
And we were lucky because in the 70s we had access to that because also a lot of those records were on the same label as Kiss. So you could buy some funky stuff in Casablanca, but you could also get your Kiss records too. And that's why Parliament, a lot of people love Parliament. And there's a reason for that because they were great and they were theatrical. Yeah. But at the core of it, those songs, if you go through those records on Casablanca, those first like 4, back to the 4 or 5 record thing, but Parliament, Funkadelic, come on. Yeah. Great songs and great like just delivery and lyrical approach and talking over certain parts. They were amazing, you know.
I feel like a lot of the bands that were on Casablanca shared wardrobe.
and stage props. I bet you some of those props flipped around. It was Parliament props and then it was Kiss props.
Yeah, exactly. Spray painted a different color and then send it to another band.
And those bands were promoted pretty good because I remember there being big ass Parliament posters just like the Kiss posters. I remember all of them. You know? Yeah. And so for me, even back to Hirax, I want to get back to what we've been doing, but also more hardcore because like when you would buy a record, remember what you used to get inside of those Kiss records, like Love Gun?
Yeah. Yeah,
that was insane. So throwing some stuff like that in there, just I want to make it a really good experience when you open up the record. That's always been my approach anyway. You know, we still do.
We had Nasty Ronnie from Nasty Savage on the show, and there was a great conversation going on with him, like there always is when you're in the room with Ronnie. Yeah, but dude, he loved talking about. And this would have been back in the day, but he still believes this. If you can make a music fan's day by just writing them a letter and sending them a stack of stickers and some old flyers and an unreleased song or
that's awesome. That's what it's supposed to be.
If you can make someone's day, that's what he said. He goes, "I'm just trying to make someone's day."
That's rad.
I will spend an extra $1 or $2 at the post office and throw some swag in there just to have some kid go, "What is this care package? Nasty Ronnie, what?" And they opened it up and they call all their friends, "Come on over, look at all this shit. Oh my God." Next thing you know, it's a party just because the mailman came.
No, that's awesome. And I still feel that way when I get stuff. It's
me
a party
too.
by myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel, whenever something arrives here or a friend sends it to me that I love and respect, because you have certain friends that they send you something, it's good.
Yeah.
And I've got a couple of buddies that send me stuff, and I'm like, dude, I don't even know how to repay you because you sent such that shit. I think sometimes it's just about blowing the other guy away. Like,
oh yeah, like a contest.
Totally.
The mail. Yeah.
I almost see it that way even with the internet because, trust me, I think we're all guilty of it. I think if you buy stuff, why would you want to hide it anyways? Like, I know a lot of record collectors that are just putting records away that nobody will ever see. And I was like, dude, you've got a relic in there that somebody that's a fan would at least like to see.
Yeah.
Just sometimes you see a picture, like there are guys that post pictures of records and I go, that's badass.
Yeah.
And it actually makes my day. It's kind of cool when you see a record of somebody that and they appreciate such a great record. And it's inspiring. You might either go get that record or it reminds you, oh, I have it in my collection. When was the last time I pulled that record out?
Absolutely.
So I think that
I have to interrupt. Because once again, we could talk forever. There's a couple of things that I want to bring up before I forget. Okay. And I'll just say what they are. First off, I want to say I love it that I love Tom G. Warrior. He knows that I love him.
He's amazing.
Yeah, he knows that I love him very much.
Special.
Yeah, he is he's a unicorn.
Dude, talk about ahead of the game, though. He was sending me packages.
There's only one Tom Warrior. There's only one of those men.
I consider him one of the guys for sure.
Yeah. So then there's the interthrational.
Oh, okay.
I want to talk about the interthrational, and I want to talk about it's fairly recent.
Yeah.
Interthrational show that you did. So and the lineup, all the guys that we could be here another hour. You just talking about how that came together and how you got invited to do that.
That'll be awesome. We can make it quick.
I also want all of these might be quick because there's a few more things. The other thing is Mike Patton inviting Hirax to open for Mr. Bungle.
That dude's amazing.
Talk about a unicorn.
That dude's amazing.
Here's the last one, and then I'm done vomiting on you guys.
Okay, that's awesome.
Here's the last one, and this one might be sticky, but it's part of the history of Hirax. And that is, and I just saw this, I'm confessing, I'll cut my throat. I confess that I saw this on Wikipedia, that Paul Baloff.
Yeah, he came in after me.
Took your place for a second. What the fuck is that all about? Can we start with that one?
If you're ever going to have two singers that love each other and not bummed that the other has come in after, I fucking loved it. I would have loved to have heard Hirax with him. I was like, you guys need to at least record those rehearsals or something. Yeah. I don't know if there's tapes, but I would love to hear it. One of my favorite people and vocalists of that whole era, because he came up with something nobody had done. It's like listening to that first Exodus record is like a horror flick.
Yeah.
Seriously, if you play that to a horror movie, perfect record for that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But Paul, I loved. Like you'll meet a few musicians as you go around through this thing called life, and he's one of those guys. I can not say one bad thing about it. And there are people that thought he was crazy. He was lovely crazy.
Yeah.
And the kind of guy that could make everybody realize sometimes you just got to let some steam off and have a good time. Not trying to hurt nobody, just having a good time. And I mean, he broke televisions for a reason. That's not a human. All right. And, old televisions, they got to be destroyed sooner or later. So
that's Nasty Ronnie. Nasty Ronnie would destroy those because he has to.
Yeah, but Paul was amazing. So I left Hirax back again, all the partying and stuff. I was a part of it. So in the 80s, right around the late 80s, I left 87, I think.
Yeah, it coins 89 as when Paul came in and worked.
Yeah. And so they actually asked him, and I thought it was a good move, actually. If I wasn't going to be there, I can't do too bad having that guy come in. So, But for some reason, probably with the back to the partying and stuff, that was a time when it was really getting crazy. Like even Paul, when he got kicked out of Exodus, I went up to visit him because we were still friends. It's not going to change our friendship. Oh. And he was living in an abandoned house. He went through some hard times. Not everybody's bringing that up, which is fine. They don't, because he still turned out to be the most awesome dude ever. But he went through some hard times, even after he had been out of Exodus for a while. Mm-hmm. But I still stayed friends with him, even when he was in Hirax, and then he left. And I was kind of like, that sucks. But I mean, I went back after a while because some of us end up doing that, where you get back together with your band, like break up with a girlfriend.
Oh, yeah.
But loved him. Yeah, it's true, though. He really was in Hirax for a little bit. I just wish they got some recordings of him.
Did he do any live shows with them? Do you recollect?
Not that I know of. He probably did, though. But I don't think it was on a big scale. Like, Paul was one of those guys, if he felt like doing a show, it didn't matter if it was promoted or not. Like, he was, he really was the real deal. Like,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
to me, legendary.
To me, this is a big compliment, but in a more serious way. But I love John Belushi. He's like the John Belushi of thrash, and I love that. To me, it's like the perfect, like the food fight episode. That would be a Paul Baloff gig.
I could see that.
That's perfect.
I could totally see that.
It's not a gig until I draw blood.
Yeah, I love, and just the way he would talk on stage. It's like, this is insane. It's ridiculously insane that he's saying this, but it's awesome because somebody needs to say it. That's what I loved about him. If you go back and listen to any of those live recordings, even the one they did at Studio 54, when they did the tour.
Yeah.
The banter in between songs is like, I don't even know if the crowd totally gets it all the time because it's just so.
You're talking about the ultimate revenge.
Yeah. That live footage that Exodus has on that, the talking in between the songs is amazing. Like we used to make tapes of Paul, just the banter, not even the band playing.
Oh, that's like what people do to Paul Stanley now.
Yeah. I think I saw a Baloff one on YouTube or something.
Yeah,
I think there is one of him, jabbering in between songs, and it's like his greatest hits.
Yeah. So he was in there, and then I think that's kind of where this whole love for the Bay Area, but it's also a brotherhood and also a dysfunctional family thing. So moving on to the Bay Area and a thrash-metal thing, I've been going to the Bay Area since 1984. I've been going up there to play shows since those early days.
You were part of that, and I've seen pictures of you hanging out with all of the Harry O. We've had Harry O on the show. I've seen pictures of you with Harry and Hetfield.
Yeah. Well, there's a big connection between us, even though the Bay Area always tries to kind of be just the Bay Area, but no, dude, we're like brothers. It's really weird in a good way, but it's still really weird because there's still this divide because it's almost like sports. Yeah, it's like the Oakland Raiders, LA Raiders.
Oh yeah, I get
49ers versus the Raiders, that kind of stuff. Like it still goes on to this day. There's still that little bit of that.
Okay,
but we love them. We've always been respectful of the Bay Area, but it's also like where we also say, hey, you need to look back at LA because a lot of that came from LA that went up to the Bay Area. And then there's also so many great LA bands, like not just to mention my own band, that's ridiculous. But when you think about Armored Saint, Savage Grace, even Bitch, who doesn't get mentioned at all. But if you listen to those first two EPs, those Bitch EPs are great. Yeah. There's also Abattoir.
Yeah.
I know I'm missing some bands, but even if you go back,
Steve Gaines, right?
Yeah. And even if you think about say Sound Barrier, like, we're talking about the black thing, like about, men of color, but Sound Barrier never get mentioned.
Yeah.
We talked about Snow White, Nitro.
Yeah.
There's a band from Germany called Mass. A lot of people don't even know about.
Oh, wow.
Mass.
Yeah. I know who that is.
Yeah. Mass, their singer was black and he was German. Right. So I'm just saying, like, there's always been a little bit, and people need to kind of maybe let kids know so other kids that might be different or feel like they can't be a part of this could be a part of this. I mean, I just try to open doors, it's not even just about being black. It's also about whatever somebody is. We're open. Come on in. If you got good music, let the music do the talking. That's why I was always cool with bands like Hanai Rocks, because the music did the talking to me first.
Yeah.
And then when I saw the Live at the Marquee video, I said, these guys are freaking incredible.
Not to name drop and brag, but we've had Mike Monroe on this show.
You should name drop that because that dude's still amazing and still going strong.
He has sat right where you sit now on our screen.
That's awesome. Yeah, dude, I love that guy. He rules. And even Sammy Yaffa, all those guys are amazing. So I just think it's all right to be, as you say, a unicorn.
Yeah, man.
So going up to the Bay Area for many years, then later on what happened is I got asked to do some benefits. There was a benefit for Sean from Violence.
Yeah.
We did a benefit for him, which raised a lot of money. And then there was another benefit that I went up and did for Tom Hunting from Exodus, which raised a lot of money too. So at that show, they asked me to come on and do a song with them. So I came up and did an Exodus song. And I've always been kind of not into doing, covers. I'm really weird like that. I mean, I probably because I'm such a music freak.
That's fair.
To me, it almost ruins it because I'm so used to hearing Thin Lizzy do Emerald. I don't want to hear anybody else do it, even though I know that's great. I know there's a lot of great covers out there. I get it. I've just listened to so many records for so many years. I'm one of those people like, I can't do it, unless it's an amazing cover. Like if you've ever heard Sails of Sharon by Yngwie Malmsteen, that cover is insane.
Wow.
And I love the Scorpions like nobody loves that band. I love them completely. But if you hear the Yngwie Malmsteen version of Sails of Sharon, it's burns. It's just amazing. Yeah. So that's kind of where I put the pendulum when it comes to doing covers. But so I did that. It actually went well. Like I got to jam also with Gary Holt and Tom Rick Hinault.
Rick Hinault. Yeah.
Yeah, both guitar players from Exodus who I respect like you would not believe. Actually, Gary had sent me a message saying, we'd like you to come up and do some singing. He's so old school. We want you to come up and do some singing. But I did it, and it actually went well. So a few months later, then I got this invitation to do the Bay Area International. And it's all musicians that I totally respect and love. How can you not respect these guys? It's like the core of the Bay Area, basically. I mean, the only guys that were missing were probably like Gary Holt and Alex Skolnick. I mean, but they had other guys that were great. The guitar player Josh from Toxic was there. There's this guy that just got the gig for Soulfly.
Mike DeLeon.
Mike DeLeon.
Yeah, he's from right down here.
He's amazing. I'm sure you already know that.
He lives like 15 minutes from me.
Well, tell him I said hello, because he just got that gig.
We're not close. We're not close, but his name is the cat's meow right now. Everyone's talking about Mike.
You love him. Like,
I've done gigs with Flesh Hoarder, his band. Okay. Yeah, Flesh Hoarder, a bunch of times over the years, and he's a sweetheart.
The reason I bring it.
Go ahead.
The reason I'm bringing him up though is like he's one of those rare musicians that you meet, and you're like, this dude gets it, and he's also a gentleman. Like, he's just like he could get any gig basically with any band, because he's like one of those guys that could actually work, like where he could probably work with somebody really difficult because he's such a good human. Like, yeah, seriously, this guy, and I can see why he's like, after we started playing with him, I'm like, this guy's a ringer. Like, he's one of the few dudes I've seen in a long time where I'm like, yeah. Like the way I like Ace Frehley, let's put it that way. He's that cool.
Wow, that's big.
He's like one of the cool, and like I met him on the plane. We were flying to Europe, and I met him on the plane, and I just knew just from the first few seconds we talked, this guy. But then to see him play, so he's doing Texas proud. Like, this guy, really play. He brings energy. Like, usually with musicians, you can always feel when you're playing with a group of good musicians.
Yeah.
Certain dudes bring that extra kick. He's that dude.
Yep.
Yeah. Texas should be very proud of him. But
yeah, we are. Everyone's talking about him right now, and I'm just proud to say that he's from right there in San Marcos, Texas, which is like the elbow of Austin, Texas.
Yeah, if he's one of those guys, if he's playing on something, I'll actually pay attention.
Wow.
Yeah. Tell us real quick about. He's gonna
love hearing that.
So tell us real quick about the Mike Patton, Mr. Bungle thing that Jason alluded to earlier.
Yeah. So this is a good one. So back when we first started playing in the Bay Area, so this thing keeps going back to Bay Area because LA is not too far. We're 6 to 8 hours away, depending on how fast you're driving. If you're driving fast, it's 6 hours. If you're driving, you're taking some breaks, stopping at McDonald's, it's about 8 hours.
That's all day, man. That's a long drive. It's pretty far for me. Maybe I'm just old, but yeah.
It's a hell of a drive.
Yeah, it's a long.
We would drive up there, especially now. It's a hell of a drive. When I was younger, I didn't give a shit. We just drove it and talked the whole way.
Yeah.
But the first early days of Hirax, one of those kids that was at the show was Mike Patton. Like, really young. I didn't know he was going to be what he became. I just saw this kid. He'd be so early at our shows before anybody. Like, we would be loading into either the On Broadway up in San Francisco.
Yeah, I played there.
In Mabuhay Gardens downstairs,
Yep.
So we would be loading in, and Mike Patton would be one of those kids. He'd be the first one or two kids there and want stuff signed. And he used to write me letters. I still have one of those letters where it says Mike Patton. And I didn't know he was going to be who Mike Patton is now. But
that's amazing.
But that's what's even more amazing, that he remembered once he got bigger that he could hand pick whatever when he does shows. So I got this message from his manager, and I did. This is what's funny. At first, I didn't reply back. I thought it was a joke. Nobody helps anybody out anymore. Who's going to help us with a gig? So I look, and my wife goes, "You should." My wife's always the smart one. I tell you that. If it wasn't for her, half the Hirax shit would probably not happen. So she goes right back, and I wrote back, and it really was real. And then they took care of everything that they said they were going to take care of, and we got a great gig. And Mike showed up early to say hello, and then a bunch of he's pretty known. I mean, when you're me and you don't keep up on all that, you don't realize who's going to be backstage. So walking backstage is like ridiculous.
Yeah,
there's all superstars around and shit. But
and the lineup that he has in Mr. Bungle now is not the original Mr. Bungle. It's new and improved Mr. Bungle. It's got like the dudes that you have all their fucking albums at home. You know?
And so then that's what's all backstage, is all these friends of theirs and stuff. But, like I said, this whole thing's kind of been a journey for me to do these things. And it's like, even though it's many years later, the rise is still there. It's just crazy. Or people that are turned on to your music that you have no idea about. Like, so I'm walking, and then there's Robert Trujillo. Yeah, is that Trujillo? How do you
You said it right the first time, my man. Yeah.
Trujillo.
Yeah.
So I'm walking, and there's this kid who I saw slamming in the pit, and then I realized it's Robert Trujillo's son.
Yeah.
So they come backstage just to say hi. So I'm just saying, like, it's really nice when you meet these stars and you never expect to be into your shit, and then they come back and say they love it, and they're, just great show, that kind of shit. So
So just to be clear, when you're opening for Mr. Bungle, it's the new improved, or not improved, but the newer version of Mr. Bungle. It's not Mr. Bungle back in the day. So it's the Scott Ian and Mike Patton and
Lombardo.
Everybody in their mom's backstage. But what I love about Lombardo, he was still learning the set. He was still he had himself locked in the room, still going over the set. I mean, that's what I love about Lombardo. That guy takes care of business. When everybody else is out there goofing around, he's back there working on music,
Yeah.
But so Mike Patton's one of those guys who he remembers and then he helps out. That's insane. Like, most guys don't do that. They don't go back and handpick bands from when they were younger and stuff. Mike Patton is, wow. And just really cool. Like, he was cool when he was a kid, but he's even cooler as an adult. So just like a bonus for us. And, it was a great show. And then we hit an audience that wouldn't normally see us as well. I mean, half of them knew us, but I'd say half of them didn't, which is fine. You always want to get up in front of new people and scare the hell out of them.
It's okay to have a little bit of work cut out for you.
I think it makes you still, you kind of get excited for that.
Yeah.
The same old routine. Like, it's great playing festivals, but when you're that far back from the audience, sometimes it's kind of a mind fuck. I like, not trying to sound cool, but I've always liked being close to the audience where you can grab somebody by the t-shirt or, get close to them. I like getting right up in their face.
That's, I call that so you can talk to them.
Basically, make that connection.
Yeah.
And then finishing off with the Bay Area International thing, all these things lead back kind of to the Bay Area because we were going back and forth. So when I went up to do that, they contacted me originally to just do 3 songs. And I was like, that's enough. I'll do 3, no problem. But what made it tougher is then they asked me to do 7. And like I said, I'm not really a covers guy. I don't like sit there and go over Metallica lyrics every day because I love those guys. But, I've heard those songs so many times. It's just, I'm not sitting around reading the lyric sheet. But so to do that, I had to learn a couple of Metallica songs, a couple of Exodus songs.
They gave you some homework.
Yeah, but it was a lot of stress. Even with having a teleprompter, shit like that. And I'm like, how are these guys going to handle these fast thrash songs? Because teleprompters, when they're handled by a human, unless they've been going over the songs. So I don't really want to get into that. But I'm just saying, teleprompters, unless you have a person that really knows it tunes, you got to know your stuff. Yeah. And we're doing songs like Whiplash. We're doing Mechanics. You're the first person I've actually talked to about this. But it had me really, it was tense because even leading up to that, I was always going over lyrics here at the house. My wife was like, "Oh, dude, you're not totally as mellow as you normally are." I was really tense. Like I didn't want any distractions because I took it really serious.
Yeah, well, good. I feel like you should have. I think.
Well, if you're going to go to Europe and play in front of the Netherlands, in front of a lot of people where they worship a band like Metallica, and you got to play Metallica, like.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I'm still glad I did it. At first, I didn't really want to do it. My wife's the one who kept nudging me, and the guys were really persuasive. They were really great. Don't get me wrong. Like, all the guys involved. I mean, Craig and Chris and, meeting Mike and all these other the rhythm sections alone. The bass player was awesome. They had 2 bass players, Matt and Harold O. You couldn't have gone over with better musicians and people. Like, they were amazing. It was just really... It was really stressful for me as being the nerd that I am and a vocalist that wants to deliver the best that I can.
Well, and I'm sure when you think about it, Harold wanted to be, I'm sure he had the same agenda to do as good of a job as he could possibly do playing those songs with you. And, you play the nerd card there. Well, Harold O is the biggest one of us all.
He's huge on that.
Yeah,
You should have seen him over there. He was
were-
mailing out records and stuff from Europe. He was buying records like I've never seen.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He's the biggest like rock nerd that I think I've probably ever met.
Yeah,
I'm sure you can relate when you did the Armored Saint thing. That must have been daunting. How many songs did you have to do?
The Accept thing was a full set. That was like 18 songs with Accept because it was a headlining tour. And then since the Saint was supporting Wasp, it was only 9 or 10 songs.
Wow.
And I think for Accept it was like I knew, I was phonetically familiar with about half or more of the material, and Armored Saint was probably 2/3 of the material. I was because with Armored Saint, every time they came through Texas since the late 80s, they would call me on stage to do a song or two. So and even when Bush was in Anthrax, I've got to do only. So
that's awesome. Yeah. No, I mean it's better when it's less tunes, is what I'm getting at. The more tunes that you pile on your plate, especially when you've only got maybe a month.
I feel your pain. I didn't have a month. I had the plane ride.
That's insane. Screw that. Like, dude, I care too much. The biggest problem I have is that I do care, and I'm also one of those guys who's kind of a critic. So when you're a critic yourself, you know that other people are going to be watching you the same.
Me too. But if I would have said no, and the band has to cancel the show, the crew doesn't make money, that they don't sell T-shirts, they don't. So it's that thing that you care about as well.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm really grateful to do any of that stuff, and you also learn. Like one thing is like know what you're taking on.
Well, here's a way to look at it. When they, and this is a bit extreme, but it still makes the point. They needed you.
Yeah, but it was also good for me as well. I mean, I think a lot of us, there's a give and take there. I mean, I want to travel. I love traveling, and I love trying to turn people on to what I do. And some people don't know, and you always got to think like that.
Listen to what you're saying. They need you. You love to travel. You love metal. What? Of course you're going to go, dude.
And also I felt like honored, but also I felt like, dude, after 3 years of sitting around here being locked down and having curfews and all this crazy shit that we just went through, and I got a chance to fly out to Holland of all places. Like, I love Holland anyway. So I'm like, so that was all, it was all great. I
applaud you, and we have some of the same moves. Here's one of them.
Oh, I love that shit.
And here's another one.
Oh yeah. That's you feel that. I mean, that to me, that's the music coming right through you.
But I give you credit. Those are Katon moves.
Right. I just, for me, it's also growing up on bands like AC/DC. I ain't gonna lie,
Oh, yeah, of course.
Angus Young, The Who's a band too that doesn't get mentioned a lot, but the power chord jumps, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But we're a product of what we grew up on. There's nothing wrong with that. It's also just putting your own twist on it. That's one of the things I do try to do. I still try to do my own thing. I think you still got to try to reach down and bring out what is really you. A lot of bands, it's no disrespect, but sometimes you follow your idols too closely. Like, it's okay to have idols and definitely take some bits and pieces, but you still got to find your own way, because you'll inspire some kid just like you. Like, it's bitching to see some kid that is dressed like you at your show. You're like, this kid, he did what I did. I did that with Rob Halford, there's certain stuff we took from musicians we love, and that's going to be something that we carry to our grave, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just glad to still be doing it.
That's right.
But to be real with you, dude, it's like, I'm still around. I can't even believe it. So while I'm here, I'm going to make some noise while I'm around.
Please do.
Yeah.
And you do the same, both you guys. Man, you got to keep waving this flag. I mean, I don't know anything else. Like, this is my life. It's been this way for
you sound like us. If we ever decide we need a third co-host, we're calling you, dude.
Anytime. Because this was also awesome. Like, it's not just about, promoting upcoming stuff. It's also just like reaching out to guys that come from the same movement, checking in too. Like, you guys are still here, and that's good. And I'm glad you guys are supporting the music that you love.
Oh yeah. Something I want to bring up about podcasting, and we're still, I feel, fairly new to podcasting, is this. People say they keep their episodes at like 30 minutes, some shorter, but
Yeah.
some longer, maybe 45 minutes, because they say that they play the attention span card. It's like, well, hold on a second. So most people are listening to these digitally in their car on their commute to work or whatever it is, traveling like a book or whatever. Well, they don't drive around for 3 hours listening to audible books. They stop at work, they get out of the car and they finish the book on the way home. Podcasting is the same way. So the attention span of a metalhead, a real metalhead, someone who loves what it is that we're nerding out about here on the Talk Louder podcast, they're going to go, wow, I can't wait to finish this one. So they're going to get out of work and get back in the car and finish it on the way home. Man, I had a great day, and they were talking about my favorite band or whatever the fuck. It doesn't matter.
Also, maybe they get turned on to some stuff that they haven't heard, you know.
Bingo.
That was always the thing that really got me into this, guys, was that I would go to concerts and talk to some other dude, and he'd be like, "You like Akira?" And I'd be like, "Hell yeah, Akira's the man!" Like, you start throwing down about certain bands, or like, "You've heard of Sabotage?" You can't believe there's another dude at a local gig that likes Sabotage.
Right.
That's what still keeps me in it. And like talking to you guys is awesome for me too. And I'm one of those people that really does listen through these things though, because I'm listening for all the little bits. And I make notes, or I'll even just get on my phone real quick and check out a track, you know, like it's the best thing you can do. And it's also helping musicians, because to me, I feel really what we are, and this goes back to the blues. I feel like we're blues musicians. I really do. I think that we travel like the blues musicians. Our music gets out there like them. So in a lot of ways, I even go back to reading books about the blues, and I take some of the ideas and I apply them to what I do, you know, like Grassroots. I've been doing that the whole time. You can always learn more from doing Grassroots, or even just dropping off some music at a certain record store and then telling kids real quick if they want, there's some free copies at a store or whatever.
That's right.
I think you just got to do what feels natural to you. And I think people see that. Like, I think that's the only reason guys like us are still around. People see that we're really, this is our thing. We're still doing it. Like these guys, after a while, they give in. They're like, God, I got to like this guy because he's still around. I tried not to like him, but he's still going. That's amazing.
It's like I always tell my parents, Kiss was not a phase.
You know? That band, they're responsible for most of this crap. You know, like, I don't want to make this too long, but I will say this. I'm a huge Kiss fan too, even though I think we all have our certain feelings on some of the egos and over the years.
Of course.
Going on.
Yeah.
But that band is monumental.
But the point is, you know, substitute Kiss for any band. The fact that we're all in our 50s and look the way we do and talk the way we do and go to shows, and it just proves the point that I think a lot of people, rock and roll is a phase in their life, and it comes around during those rebellious years of your teens, you know, and a lot of people unfortunately outgrow it, or it becomes sort of background music or something. But the three of us obviously didn't get the memo.
Yeah, I didn't get it at all. I still don't get it. You know what it is? Like, I just found a good friend. Like, even though there's other things in my life, it's always been like one of my best friends' music. It really is. Like, if you think about heavy metal, especially, you know, like I said, back to friendships, and even losing Bob, who we recently lost. These are people that I've known through the music for decades. And that's probably the other reason I love the music so much. Like, I got real good friendships from this, and it's just in me. And every day, like no fail, I got to listen to some music every day.
Yeah. No, that's
just happens.
I could say, I think we can all say the same thing. If we look at our tight inner circle of friends, I think they're probably all just as nerdy and geeky as we are. And music is as important to them as it is to us. Like Jason, I would consider one of my best friends. My other handful of guys I would consider my best friends. Music is still an important piece of our life, you know? And I think that's one of the reasons we're best friends, you know?
And I'll add to it. It's like when you're young and impressionable, and you are kind of, odd, different, and you discover rock and roll from an older brother or a friend at school or something like that. You don't, and then you realize all of a sudden, like an explosion, that the music that has just possessed your soul is your newest and bestest friend.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's never, ever, ever going to let you down for the rest of your life, for as long as you live. Let's say Black Sabbath, you hear the song Black Sabbath for the first time and your mind is crushed.
it's one of the greatest songs ever.
And then let's say in a terrible world, you don't hear that song, your favorite song, for 10 years, 20 years, and then you're somewhere, boom, all of a sudden, like quantum leap, you're somewhere else and you're going, oh my God, I'm disoriented, and all of a sudden, bow, bow, bow comes on, and you're like, wait a minute, and you know all the words, you can play air guitar to the whole song, and you hadn't heard it in 20 years. Because
that song, it's great that you even mentioned that song.
Because it's your friend that you remember. It was like the 20 years didn't even exist.
We had a box that flickered to music that we would go into a room and listen to Black Sabbath. And you turn out the lights and the box, it would do movements to the music. I don't know if they still exist, but this was something we did back in the 70s.
Weird.
And that song was one of the songs we would play because that's just such an ominous riff. Yeah. It's one of the most evil riffs of all time.
Yeah.
Heaviest. Yeah. But no, dude, I can relate. Like, that's why I think this conversation has been so awesome. And you guys are from different areas. So that's what the music just really does bring the best out of people. It brings people together.
Yeah.
And also, I think one of the things that's really not right, that headbangers especially, and punks too, get a bad rap about how smart they really are. There's a lot of smart people in this music. You get to meet them and you're like, dude, that dude's actually a genius. Like, that's the way I feel about Mustaine. And I've known him a long time. Yeah. Even back when they were doing the demos, I knew he was something special for a fact. I'd never heard anybody play like Mustaine.
No.
Probably still haven't.
No, he probably created. He's a creator of thrash metal guitar. No one plays like that.
Nobody. It's insane. Yeah. It really is insane what he's doing. It's like he's walking the tightrope every time he does a guitar solo.
Metallica didn't realize, I'll just call them Metallica, didn't realize what they were doing the world a favor, especially Mustaine didn't think that they were doing the world a favor by letting him go, i.e. kicking him out of Metallica.
They did a big favor, and I don't know if
fucking weird to say that.
I don't know if he's ever going to realize it, because he's just one of those dudes that's always pushing himself to be better. Yeah. Even at his age, dude, his guitar playing hasn't showed any slowing down.
No.
I mean, he's gnarly. He really is a gnarly. I call him the assassin. He's one of the most deadly guitar players to ever live.
I almost feel like I can say the later material is like as good as the last thing.
Especially when you consider how long Megadeth's been going. Yeah. They've actually gotten stronger, even through all the bullshit. And they've been through some crap.
Yeah.
Well, there were a couple of records that they're kind of blippy on my radar, my Megadeth radar, but like, dude,
pretty good catalog.
Dude, there's some records that came out like 2000, in the mid 2000s, like 2005 and 2010, and later. I'm just going, holy shit. I may not have them in my collection. Here's the truth. I worked at a record store for a while, so I was hearing whatever I wanted to hear, like every day at work. And dude, the system has failed. That record blew my mind.
Yeah, I think the best thing any musician could do is work in a record store. I did it.
Yeah.
I did it a few times.
Well, and I'm talking about a Megadeth record that came out 15 or 20 years ago, for all I know, and it blew my mind. It's like, holy shit, this is fucking good.
Yeah, no, Dave's incredible, and like Metallica did do everybody a favor, And I, it's funny. I don't really want to take too much away from them, because I get it. Everybody's got something to say about them. Yeah. But they fucking are a great band, and good for you. But thank God they got rid of Dave, because Dave's incredible. And
they gave the world.
I don't think he would have been as unhinged either. If they would have kept him, I think it would have toned him down a bit. I think by unhinging him, by kicking him out, which made him go crazy, he applied that to his guitar playing, and it's the best thing that could have happened. So
yeah, I think he's often said that revenge is a great motivator, and I think he was like, he was out to prove himself. And
that's exactly what was going on.
As far as I know, they're they've fallen back in friendship with each other too, just because of, you age out your hate kind of dissipates and you realize, wait, these are my bros. I knew.
And he's had his own success in his own right. I mean, it would be different if he got kicked out of Metallica and then he just disappeared and was, working a miserable job and on his sixth divorce or whatever. But I mean, he's created an empire and he's been very successful and he's world renowned and people respect him and look up to him. So I think that helps age out of it too.
Yeah, well,
it doesn't hurt.
The age thing does help. It really, because like even for me now, when I see other musicians, I'm actually happy for them with whatever success they're having. Yeah. I'm happy for them because I know how hard it is. When I was younger, it was more hate. You're like, screw that guy.
But you get over that. You get over that.
Yeah. Once you get older, though, you get it, though. Like you realize how, there's so much more other shit in life that be tripping on than a musician doing well.
Amen. Hey, Katon, it's been really, really an honor to have you on the show today, man.
Mine as well, and that's totally why I did it. Because, dude, this is the first one I've done in a long time. Because I didn't really, especially during COVID, I did a lot of video chats where I would come on and talk and stuff, and that was good for me. Like, and a lot of other people, which later on, when people would tell me, I was like, we all needed that, But doing this kind of a thing for me was important because it's also guys that I respect. And I'm being real with you because, like, I haven't done them. And I'll tell you why. The 3-year period, I got a lot of offers to do interviews. And I was just like, there's really nothing to talk about. Everything's so screwed up right now. And I don't want to be negative. So I didn't want to do it and talk about negative stuff. But now that the world's kind of opening up again.
Yeah.
It's still baby steps. Everybody can act like everything's wide open. It's still not completely. It's still, people are still slowly coming out of their slumbers.
Right.
But I think the music is what is so important at the end of the day. Yeah. And so to do these kinds of things and be able to still get out there and help people. I mean, we're really helping people, not just ourselves. Obviously, there's a little bit of self-indulgence here because I get to talk to some collectors, which I love, But I think we help a lot of people through music, and that's the best thing I think any of us can do. So I'm going to do it as long as I can drag myself on stage and off stage and keep recording and where I still feel that I'm at least putting out music at a definitely better height than the lower. Like once you start, you shouldn't even record. I mean, I think the only reason you should go into a recording studio is if you feel the material that you're up doing is strong enough, or why waste people's time? I wouldn't be doing it any other way.
Yeah.
But, I want you guys to know this was an honor for me.
Oh, it was a pleasure, man. It was nice to meet you and talk to you. You truly are what we call a lifer, and I love your positive outlook. I think I mentioned that earlier, but it's very evident and it's much needed. And so I love the fact that that's the message you spread wherever you go. So thanks for joining us today, and continued luck with the band and your next album or EP, whatever it turns out to be. We'll look forward to that, and maybe touring will bring you through Texas, and we can all catch up with each other.
Yeah, well, I can tell you this. That's kind of cool you brought that up. We're definitely going to come back through Texas. We haven't done it enough. We've done it a couple of times, and it's always been excellent, especially once we start getting around Houston and San Antonio and all that stuff, But we'll be back out there, and I'll definitely hit you guys up. So I'll invite you out to the show, and I'm not just saying that. Not one of those cool guy moves. I want you to come out and have a couple beers and shoot the shit. Even if you don't drink, come out and have some coffee, whatever.
Yeah.
One last thing I'll say before I go, and much respect to both of you, to the younger audience out there that will be checking this out. If you guys are still around 30, 40 years later, then you're lifers. But if you don't, have a nice ride. But the thing is, this really is a life decision. Like, you got to decide you're in it and you really love it. It's like there's a lot of different styles of music out there, but the people that stay true to this music stay true to it for a long, long time,
Yeah.
So much respect to you guys. I'm digging seeing the rooms. Like, you guys got everything up there that I love, so I'm still looking around. And
well, you're living proof of it, man. So thank you for leading by example, and thank you for being here today. I really enjoyed the stories and getting to know you. On behalf of my co-host, Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave Glessner, with today's very special guest, Katon W on the Talk Louder podcast.